get started here momentarily. And we got that set up. I'm excited to see all of you guys tonight. Thank you for joining us. It's going to be fun. And we got about 40 seconds here, everyone. 40 seconds. It's 4-0. Oob to Joe's Maine. You've got aliens. All right, a great way to support this show, everyone, is by hitting that thumbs up or thumbs down, hitting that subscribe button if you are new tuning us in. And, of course, the Super Chat is open, and we always appreciate your support through the Super Chat. And you can always do some shopping at facebook.com/the SOR Vault to grab your great T-shirts. Even Bumblefoot's wearing a Spaced Out Radio T-shirt, everyone. Hello, Sig Sauer. How you doing? We're going to get going in 5 seconds here, everyone. Let's have a great time tonight. Hi, Ronnie. From the mountains of central British Columbia to you listening around the world, this, my friends, is Spaced Out Radio. I am your host, Dave Scott, sitting in the captain's chair of SOR headquarters. We welcome you to tonight's show on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on TalkStream Live, Revolution Radio, and KPNL. If you want to take a listen to our archives, they are free for you by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Just do old Davey the favor, hit that subscribe button. You can follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show. Our website is spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot and reading up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire. Tonight's show is brought to you by Chive Charities. Help make the world 10% happier by visiting Chive Charities today. You can find them on our website. Tonight we are getting into the sci-fi genre, where we're going to go down the road of using your own creation to write that next book or big story. You know, we get so many people around here reaching out stating they should write a book about their own encounters. My answer is usually, why not? Go for it. Tonight, John and Emily Goodwin are back, and they are here from Writers of the Future. Both have been in the publishing game for years, helping new and previous authors hone their skills to become award winners and bestsellers. We're going to get into that because it's going to be about sci-fi. It's going to be about the paranormal, some UFOs. Then at the bottom of hour number 3, oh, it's exciting. Stick around because we have the Magic 8 Ball, then we have the Newswire, and the Thought of the Dave. Thank you so much, John and Emily. It's been a while since we talked with you guys on this show, but you're good friends, and we'd like to have you on to talk about Writers of the Future. How you been?
Been great. Thank you very much for having us back on again, too, Joe.
No problem. No problem. And Emily, how you doing?
Sorry, I said Joe. I meant Dave. I'm so sorry about that.
Oh, I missed that. Totally missed it, but that's okay. Emily,
I didn't miss it, and I went, oh, my gosh, what a way to start a 2.5-hour show.
Oh, well, you know.
We roll it back 17 seconds.
There we go. Oh, it's good to have you guys back on. My name is Joe, and Emily, this is where you have to come in as the fellow Canadian with me here, because obviously John is not being able to understand the Canadian part of English here.
Yeah, I said earlier I would translate as needed.
Well, I appreciate that. I appreciate that. It's good to have you guys back on. And John, I want to start with you on this one because you've been in the publishing game a long time, and you've done everything from romance novels to UFOs and every type of book in between. What is it about books that you absolutely love and made a career out of?
I think the main thing about books and publishing in general is it gives people a chance to be able to express. I mean, I do mostly fiction, but I've also helped people with their nonfiction. But it's a new outlet. It's another way to be able to provide a means for people, one, to just chill out from stresses of life and livingness. But two, so many people have great stories, and I really enjoy helping people get their story out. And even if it's, we've had, has Preston Dennett been a guest on your show before?
Many a times.
Yeah, so he was a winner. He entered the Rise of the Future contest, I think.
He has a record, I think 47 times he
entered.
Yeah,
47 times he entered. And he finally won. And he's done a lot of his paranormal stuff, but he had this goal of becoming a published science fiction writer and being able to tell his story. And so when he went up on stage and told his story, it was so touching. And I mean, when it comes to this, I'm such a softy heart on the writers and illustrators when they actually get themselves published. I'm also always amazed at how different. You think like, okay, everything's been told before, everything's been written. It is so not true. There's every year when we have publish our book, Writers of the Future, there's 12 new stories and it's 12 new voices, and it's amazing what they are able to convey in their stories. And we keep our stories PG. Our books are for middle school on up, and it's also a testament to the fact, and this is something that Mr. Hubbard did, because he published over 200 stories in the golden age during that time period in 30s and 40s in America. He didn't use profanity. You don't need to use profanity to tell a good story, and you don't have to have sex to be able to convey romance. And so we're able to do that, and that's something that we make sure is very clear in our books that, hey, these stories are going to have to pass muster with a middle school grade teacher, so they better be good. But they've also be good enough for military and for people that love hardcore adventure and action. So it's something I really enjoy being able to do that and show that you can really do that with publishing. And people just when they say, look, I've always wanted to be able to write something, and when they're able to do that, it's such a joy that it provides. And we've got people entering the contest now. It's grown so much, and Emily will go into that as well. Over 175 countries, we have people submitting stories now. We get a couple thousand entries every quarter. It does so well, and it's just so many people are appreciative of the fact that they can now get published.
Emily, I want to bring
That's
you
my
in.
answer.
I agree. Emily, I want to get you in here. And, for a lot of people, books are still very important. And you obviously had a real love for literature before you decided to get into the publishing game. What do you love about books today? Because so many people are turning away from books for everything computerized.
I know. You hear about people, they're like, oh, I love the smell of books. And some people, e-books don't smell like anything. But, books are just very important. We did some surveys, and a lot of people read books to escape. They want to go somewhere. You can go on an adventure. You can, you want a paranormal story. You can read about it. Some people experience them, but books are a way to escape. You go on an adventure. Whatever genre you're reading, I think it's good for people to read just in general. And it's just, people will always read. I don't think books are ever going to go away. You got digital coming in, but if you follow the stats, digital will go up, but books remain. Even, we had this a year of lockdown, but books are on the rise again, and you still have, Amazon is still delivering books to everybody. And, we had our winners, and normally we send them out on book signing tours every year after they win the contest. And this last year, obviously we couldn't do that, but we had a ton of little independent bookstores do virtual book signings, and we had sent book plates out, and we still got autographed books out to people. So people still want that stuff. I think people still want books in their hands. A lot of people like to read. There is digital as well, but I think both of them will keep going.
It's interesting. I just did an interview on a podcast that I have for Writers of the Future on the owner of Mysterious Galaxy, which is our Mysterious Bookshop, which is the largest mysterious bookstore mystery bookstore in the world. And he said his sale of hardcover books is on the increase.
Good.
And which was great. There's just a definite tactile sense that, he said, I bet you, I remember the books that I read when I'm holding a book, but when I read stuff on a Kindle, I don't remember the book, way later. And it's like, that's interesting because totally remember the first books I read as a young lad, reading Call of the Wild by Jack London and Tom Sawyer and Huck Finn. I still remember them, but I remember the books, holding the book as I was reading in the paper. And so there's a definite association you have when you actually have a printed book too.
The one thing that I love about books is being able to feel it. To feel the pages, to feel. Emily, you made a good point about the smell of the book. I like the feeling of my hand. I like getting away from my tablet or my television or my cell phone every now and again. And this is where I absolutely love and adore books. But we have an entire generation out there that really thinks a library is only meant for school use. They're not into these reading sessions anymore. I mean, I drive around my town. I never see kids with books in their hands. How do we get the popularity of books back? Or is this just a sign of the times? Because I think that there's an entire, I'm not saying all of the generation that's ahead, but a good portion of it that hasn't fallen in love with reading.
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting that there's one thing on it is a recent study that I read showed that on Gen Z, which is the young ones, which are I think they came out of their mother's womb with a device in their hands, the way they operate with stuff. But some of them are now going to, at least when they're home in their room, like reading an actual book, even though when they're outside with their friends and at school, they've got their phone in their hands. But when they go home, they're actually reading books, and it's something that at least on surveys started coming up as it was happening more and more with the Gen Zers. So that was a refreshing thing, and our sale of print books too have been picking up over the last little bit. So that's another sign too that sales in general, but in terms of reaching the young people, I think a lot of it is also just finding material that they can enjoy, and that's something we endeavor to do, obviously, with our Writers of the Future.
Yeah, and it's also up to the parents. Parents can help with that, getting the kids to read.
But unfortunately, we're in an era too where parents didn't read. They weren't made to read. It's not made to be done anymore in schools, at least a lot of schools here in America. And so you've got now a scene where you've got second, third generation of kids who don't read because their parents didn't make them read because their parents didn't make them read. So that's also part of the problem that we're dealing with too, and that's why a good fiction story can help, hook somebody into wanting to read. Like, that sounds interesting. And short stories help accomplish that because big novels sometimes will intimidate if a person isn't a reader. But a short story, they can get through it and go, oh, that was kind of fun. What else can I read? And it helps prime the pump for interest in more reading.
The one thing that I have noticed with a lot of the younger kids, and like I have a split family. My daughter is 22, my stepdaughter is 18, and I have a 7-year-old boy. My 22-year-old loves to read, absolutely loves to read. My 18-year-old couldn't care because she's into that online video game stuff like Call of Duty and Minecraft, whereas my little guy, we're in a tablet age where learning continues once you get home because the child has their interest piqued and they go on YouTube and they want to watch videos on dinosaurs and sharks and lions and all sorts of stuff. And, why read a book when you can visualize it with your eyes and get that ingestion of seeing what you're believing rather than being able to have your imagination paint your own picture of it.
That's the key word, that imagination word. I think you hit that one very much right on the head. As CGI gets more and more advanced and more this, more that, there's no need for imagination. I think that's a terrible fatality, in people's, mindset that they can't imagine stuff. What would be something good? I like reading a book and I know what the beautiful girl looks like. I see a movie and it's like, that's not what she looks like. So that imagination is an amazingly important asset that people need to have.
Oh, you're absolutely right. And sorry, Emily, let me just say this. I remember when I was a child, I grew up in a house where books were not seen anywhere. If it wasn't on TV, if it wasn't at the hockey rink or the ballpark, it didn't exist. And I think I maybe saw my mom reading a couple of times, and I was just like, oh, really? Somebody's actually reading? And I never knew what the importance was. And, the one good thing outside of my daughter that I could say about my ex-wife is that she got me addicted to reading. She was always, always reading. And
how did you trip onto it? How did you get
because of my ex-wife, and she was always reading books, and here I was like, what are you wasting your time with that? She goes, you should actually try it. So I did. I did, and I fell in love. But I mean, when it comes to imagination, my favorite story to tell on that was, I'm a diehard Tom Clancy, Jack Ryan series reader. Okay, like I watched one movie, The Hunt for Red October. Once I read the book, I never watched another Tom Clancy movie after that because the books were just way better than Hollywood. That's for sure.
For sure.
And I remember reading Dead or Alive, and there was this scene in Dead or Alive where, when you got to realize, Emily, you'll understand when I say this. When it comes to Canada, we never get mentioned. In the big books by the big authors, we never get mentioned. Canada never gets mentioned. Everybody goes to Australia or Britain or wherever, but never Canada because we're boring.
Well,
we are.
Well, you have Robert J. Sawyer. Robert J. Sawyer is like the big Canadian sci-fi author. He's fantastic, and he writes all Canadian stories, so check him out.
No, I've had him on the show, but I'm saying like major authors, you never see them mention Canada or even movies. But here in this Tom Clancy book, Dead or Alive, all of a sudden he talks about this terrorist flying into Vancouver and then charts the highway direction to the hotel, and I'm like, holy crap! I know where this hotel is. And I'm reading this at like 1:30 in the morning, and then he has this terrorist hopping on Highway 1 to take the 264 exit east to the Canada-U.S. border. I'm like, oh my God, I know exactly where that is. I mean, we got this terrorist, like I'm right into it, and I'm freaking out. And I'm like, you got to be kidding me. I know exactly where this guy is. And then he turns on Zero Avenue and finds an open field. I'm like, my God, I just drove by there the other day. And yeah, I mean that is what you want in a book. You know what I'm saying? You want that.
Absolutely.
I'm still excited about it.
I couldn't tell.
Oh yeah.
I'm jumping up and down just listening to you.
I was freaking out. That's for sure. I was totally freaking out. But if you let your imagination go, Emily, that's the way a good book will help you. It doesn't matter whether it's drama, whether it's real life, whether it's action. A good book will always hit that key cog of your emotion, won't it?
Yeah.
That's right.
And there was I know you used to have Jim Mars on the show. He was one of our key spokespeople for Battlefield Earth when we had that re-release of that campaign back in 2016. But his books were amazing, and he was an amazing storyteller, and had all of the stuff that he was able to talk about. But I loved his books, still do.
What makes a good writer, John?
A lot of it has to do with, one, you have to have a good story. You need to have an idea, something that people will be interested in. But the interest is gotten together by how you tell the story. And so with what we do with Writers of the Future, and specifically, actually, Emily scripted a free online course, which we've done now, which I think is how many people on the course?
5,600.
5,600 people are on the course now from 809 countries right now around the world. And we have several of our judges who took time. They did videos that we put together on how to write a story. All the different pieces, how to start a story, how to build suspense, how to evolve a story, the try-fail cycle that has to happen in there multiple times before you can actually have the final conclusion, how to end a story, how to handle dialogue. And if you have some of these basics down, you can tell a good story. and people go, wow, that was really good, because it pulls you on. A good story pulls you on. It makes you want to turn the page and see what's happening next. You know, you have a really good story when you know, the person's reading, okay, I'm going to lights out at 1 o'clock. And then by 1:30, okay, just one more chapter. Now you got a good story, but that's because it pulls people along. And those are things that I think a good storyteller has, and that's something that people will be able to appreciate. But the thing is how to be able to do that. But we created this course for anybody. It's free on the writersofthefuture.com site, but we created it so that anybody who has a story, because there's so many people, especially in the paranormal community, we encourage people to sign up and just take it, and it'll help you to be able to put that story down to paper that you've got and communicate it. Even if you just want to have something you want to write and give to your family, how do you tell the story so that they're interested in it, you know? And so that's, to me, like, that's what a good story is, but that's also something that bears out, because I've done a lot of, you know, reviews of storytelling from all different people, from like whether they're writing, you know, the mystery or the science fiction or fantasy or Western genre, and whether they're from South Africa, whether they're from Middle Africa, whether they're from England, Australia, United States, Canada. They all have different storylines that they will sometimes tell, because they make it, you know, centric to their own community, to their area, and it's still those things that pulls along. I can get totally transfixed in a story from Kenya or from South Australia. It doesn't matter where it is. If it's a good storyteller, you've got a story, it's amazing. L. Ron Hubbard, who's the one that created this contest, had he had his article he wrote. He told a story about Jack London, how he wrote, and he would run out of ideas, and he'd borrow $1 from somebody and just go to a bar and give somebody, a sailor that just came in off of a ship, and he'd just buy him some drinks. This is obviously turn of the century, 1900s, and he just talked to me. You know, he'd just get stories, and he'd be able to go back and write more stories. There's so many good stories out there, and it's not hard to get them, but he talks about ways you can actually come up with stories, and that's one of the things that this course actually does to help, you know, people that do have, I had this one thing that happened when I saw this one, you know, UFO over the mountains, when it was this thing here and that thing there, but I don't know how to tell it. Well, this is something that can actually help a person be able to tell it, and it will be interesting.
Yeah, if anybody wants to check out that writing workshop that John was talking about, it's at writersofthefuture.com, and have a lot of resources there for people that want to write. There's a forum, there's podcasts, there's this online workshop, so there's a lot of things there that you can find to be able to help write a story. If somebody else wants to write a story, of course the Writers of the Future contest is there too, and that's the contest that we run every year. It's been going, we're on year 38 now, where we publish 12 new authors every year in sci-fi fantasy. So we have the books themselves with the new stories. If you like to read them, if you want to write them, then you can go there to enter the contest.
And that contest is open to anybody, right?
It's open to anybody, yeah. I mean, it's all blind judged, so anybody can enter from anywhere in the world. Like I think John mentioned earlier, we have like over 175 countries where people have entered the contest from. It's free for anybody to enter. There's, you know, like we've had 16-year-olds enter, we've had 75-year-olds enter. So the name gets taken off the story and it goes to the panel of judges who are all themselves like New York Times bestselling authors. Robert J. Sawyer, we talked about earlier, he's one of the judges. Orson Scott Card.
He wrote Ender's Game.
Yeah. Kevin J. Anderson. Nnedi Okorafor. I don't know. Some people might recognize some of these names. Larry Niven. Brandon Sanderson, he's a big fantasy author right now. So there's about 30 judges that go through these stories, and then 12 of them get published every year in the anthology, Writers of the Future, which are available anywhere.
Very cool. And I love the fact that it's open to anybody. And, you know, it gives anybody a shot to win or to at least get seen. Whether or not they have the ability to do it, you know, that's another sense. But you know what? Hey, when you give people an opportunity, sometimes the diamonds in the rough come out to shine. John and Emily Goodwin are our guests tonight on Spaced Out Radio, Writers of the Future. We're going to talk a little paranormal, supernatural, sci-fi with them. What makes a good book? We'll find out when we come back on Spaced Out Radio next. That was a fast first half hour.
Yeah.
It was.
Good stuff. Good stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, I just remember from when we talked before, there was so much interest from people who had a story they wanted to tell but didn't know how to do it, and just, that's why I love when I'm able to be on your show and talk to you, because I know your audience. Some of them have great stories to tell but don't know how to tell it, and this is something that we're providing to be able to assist somebody to be able to do that.
I agree.
And the thing and what people don't really understand is where you have something that there's no strings attached. It's just strictly, when Mr. Hubbard created this contest back in '83, it was just, he wanted to be able to pay it forward, because that's one thing science fiction fantasy has got a history of doing. And so he just set it up, and he continues to fund it all out of his royalties. And so it just goes on and on and on. And we just today finished transferring over our forum did a whole big upgrade on our Writers of the Future forum. So that's, that goes back 13 years now, or 15 years. So it's just, we try to really help the aspiring writer, and we got some amazing talent that's come as a result of it.
I could just imagine what it's like to all of a sudden, have this. You know what? I'm going to ask that during the show. So sure. I'm not going to ask it here, because I want to make sure I get this point on the show. Even though YouTube and Spreaker can hear us, our radio stations can't when we talk about it. And, the one thing I hate about being a show host is the last thing you want is all the good juice to happen during the commercial break.
Yeah. And one thing, too, we can talk about as well is when you have the 12 winners, but we also have the finalists. So you have finalists, you've got honorable mentions, and that goes on because we have so many entries now. We have a couple hundred of those, and people will use those now in their resumes because the contest is so well respected in the publishing community. Editors will take someone who says, I was an honorable mention in Rise of the Future, and they'll take their story out of the slush pile to give it a shot. It's that well respected now after 38 years.
That's awesome. It's the way it should be. Yeah.
And the blind judging is what cinches it, because a person could be anything. It doesn't, we haven't had, it's been a long time since we had a prisoner that actually won something because they couldn't make it. But we don't know who it is until the number gets taken off of the submission when it comes back from the judges. And then we look and say, oh, this is such and such from such and place. And so it's just so, it really does, it totally levels the playing field. It's other than the fact that they're a good artist or a good writer, that's the only qualification, and they can't have been professionally published. So that's something. This is for amateurs who are on the way to becoming professional. And there's no other magazines that do that anymore. No magazines will take a risk on a no-name author. It's just, for them, it's the names that sell on the book covers, on the magazine covers. And for us, because we've got Gail and Hubbard on the cover, and because we've got the big name judges, it moves. And so it's the best-selling science fiction anthology out there.
We have just under 2 minutes here.
Okay. So if I was shooting a bunch of juice off there, then we can redo that juice later on, but otherwise...
Yeah, you're killing me here, man. You're killing me.
We can talk about... What did we talk about last time on the break? We talked about fat bombs. Everyone in the comments went all like, what's fat bombs? Everybody, we all eat fat bombs.
Oh, yes.
We haven't made any for a bit, John. We'll have to make some more soon.
Yeah.
Yes, those are sounding delicious.
Yes.
Oh,
my God.
In preparing for this, we actually have several winners from Canada over the last several years that we can talk about that as well when we get back into it. If Canadian winners is a point of interest for the show, or if it's just something that we keep as an internal break time chat.
Considering 75% of our audience is in the U.S., I'm not too worried about the Canadian content.
Okay.
I don't know, unless you can't understand me, John.
Eh?
Huh? What was that? I heard that.
Yeah, don't you know? Yeah.
Just mute him.
Oh, Emily, one day you'll come home. One day you'll come home. They always come home. Unless you live in like California or Florida, which I know you live in California.
I live in California, but I live in Hollywood, and it's not very nice.
Okay, shh.
No.
Shh. All right, 1 second here. We got about 15 seconds left. Big thank you to Andrew for the super chat tonight to kick things off. It's great to have your support, Andrew. Really do appreciate it. And give us a thumbs up, thumbs down. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button if you're new. Here we go. Second half hour of Spaced Out Radio is underway. Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Dave Scott. Really do appreciate earning your listening ears. Want to remind you that if you miss portions of this show or others, check out our free archives by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Just do me the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot and reading up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Instagram, Spaced Out Radio Show. From Writers of the Future, we have John and Emily Goodwin. They come around once a year here to talk about new authors, new subjects, and how, if you want to become a writer, write a book, write short stories, this is the place to go. John, Emily, welcome back.
Thank you very much.
All right. What makes a good book?
So, the main thing about making a good book is that it's, you've got all the different genres, first of all. So in fiction, you've got genres. You've got science fiction, fantasy, mystery, adventure, horror, thriller, romance. And so you've got your various audiences that are going to be looking for certain things. And so each genre has to deliver a different impact. So like horror is different than dark fantasy, which is different than regular fantasy, but horror is an extreme form of fantasy. So horror is going to be much more, to make a good horror book, it's going to have that very strong, visceral feel that delivers, and it's not always good. The endings aren't necessarily always good, but there's a lot of blood-cringing feelings that happen with horror, whereas a fantasy it's more of a feel-good thing. There's a lot of action that will be into it, and good fantasy, good epic fantasy has a lot of action at these days. But it's so depending upon what genre you're trying to reach in that reading audience, you need to deliver what they're already reading. What do they think is that qualifies for a good whatever that genre is? And that's an important thing to get. So even if you're writing a story, like we just published One Girl Who's Coming In, Rise of Future, Volume 37, Elizabeth Chatsworth. She's a British middle-aged woman. She just turned 50 and decided, oh my gosh, I'm turning 50 and I've always wanted to write a book, but I just couldn't. So she met up with one of our judges for Writers of the Future, introduced her to the contest. She took the online writing workshop, and she began writing, and she sold her first novel recently. Steampunk is the genre. So that audience is a very definite and different what they like to read in a story. It's got to be very uplifting on steampunk, and it's obviously the play on the steam of the 1800s into more of a current environment, but they all have the 1800s of the weaponry, the stuff like that, but it's like a current scenario, current people. So you're going to write a book that's different, and then a Western, again, it's different. So to answer your question then on what makes a good book, it's writing that genre in the fashion that genre is meant to be written. So that requires, first of all, reading a lot of that genre books. If you're really able to write in this case, you're going to write paranormal. You need to read how other people are writing paranormal, especially the successful ones, to know what do they do. And any good writer will tell you they started off, they read. They read a lot. Like, how do you introduce a new character? How do you introduce a new scene, a new scenario, how do you build up the tension on a story? How do you make it so that an action scene really makes you want to turn the pages and just not go, flat? So a big thing that every one of them will tell you is you have to read other books. And that's something that just you're not going to get away with, to be able to think that off the brow of Job you're just going to sit down and pen a 75,000 word bestseller. It's not going to happen. You need to actually develop a style. You need to know how to do these things, and that's a writer becomes a writer by writing. So he also becomes a writer by reading, like what do other people do. So it's not just sitting down and writing, but you have to get yourself some experience of like what is a good story in the genre you're going to be able to write in. So if you're going to be able to write paranormal, then who are your favorite paranormal authors? Read them, but don't read them as a spectator. Read them as like, how'd they do this? How did they do this? How did they do this? How did they handle their dialogue? How did they handle, their first encounter with an alien? Or how did they handle different scenarios, so that you can see for yourself, oh, that makes sense. I think I can do that. And then you practice it, and that's how you become a good writer, and that's how you can make a good novel.
Yeah. And in science, we do a lot. Obviously, the writing of futures in science fiction and fantasy, and the judges will tell you some of the things they're looking for. They're looking for something that will strike on the emotions, originality, new ideas when you're dealing with magic, and for the fantasy type stories, there has to be some sort of limitations to the magic. It can't just be full genie. So, but also just something that is a page turner, something that keeps you going. And there's some essays on that online writing workshop that we spoke about earlier at writersoffuture.com, where it teaches you how to put suspense in a story so that you person wants to keep turning that page. There's a lot of factors that go into a good story, and a lot of it's in the eye of the beholder or the reader.
How has the internet affected what you guys do? I know you're getting entries from all over the world, and people are really starting to put pen to paper, but much like podcasts and radio shows where everybody thinks they're a journalist nowadays, we see everybody self-publishing and thinking they're an author. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And to me, I find that frustrating, because maybe it's just me, maybe I'm going to sound like a jerk here, but much like driving, I take radio and journalism and writing and authoring much like it's not a right. It's something you work for. It's a privilege.
Right. So for us, the internet has been, first of all, it's been really good. You've all heard, about the poor aspiring writer or the poor aspiring artist. It's true. You have some of these, especially some of the younger people who haven't built up a career yet, and they don't have money. So it used to be a problem when people were entering the contest to be able to come up with enough money to pay for a Xerox and a postage to send a story submission in, or to make 3 copies of their art and send it in. Now you can upload it all. And so that makes it so much better, and it's made it easier for people from anywhere in the world to be able to submit, because you can submit from everywhere. So for that respect, it's been really good. And so being able to automate the whole judging line, we still get our hard copy submissions in, and they get sent to the judges, hard copy. But the vast majority are soft copy now coming in, so it makes it really easy and a lot faster to deal with the volume of submissions that we have. So that part's been really good. In terms of the stories themselves that you find on the internet, like you said, you can have anybody says, I'll upload my story on Amazon and then I'm a published author. Well, no, you're not. You can maybe throw something up there, but if you haven't gone through the process, like, there's a reason why a good book is a good book. you don't get your attention distracted on typographical errors, on mispunctuation, on bad typesetting, on typesetting where it's hard to read or it's distracting because the margins are too wide or the gutter's too deep. All these different things that a person who doesn't know publishing wouldn't even think of, but that's what makes a book also desirable, is like, how does it feel when you read it? Do your eyes get tired, or are they like, can you just comfortably go on and read it? And that's something that a book offers that you can't get otherwise through an editorial line. The internet also, because of an ebook, as bodies grow older, it's nice to be able to take that font size and move it up from 12 to 14 to 16 to 24 to 32, whatever's suitable for you, so you can keep on reading it and not have to strain your eyes to try to read something. That's a big plus with the Kindle or the Nook or any of the other reading devices that you've got. So that's been good on that. But getting a book that's gone through an editorial process, which you can find if you take a look at a book, okay, you can just see who published it. You know, if it was like I did it myself, then, okay, published by John Goodwin and Associates. Okay, who's the author? John Goodwin. Great. But if you find something that's published by a publisher, then you know it's gone through some type of an editorial process, which is going to guarantee to you that that money you invested in that book is going to be money well spent.
I got to ask you, Emily, if you could jump in here as well on this one. Mm-hmm. I've noticed in the paranormal world, supernatural, let's just use the paranormal world as an umbrella term for the entire community, that there are a lot of people all of a sudden starting their quote-unquote publishing companies. I can name 5 right off the bat right now. And I'm just curious, what's the difference between what they are doing and something like what you guys are doing in publishing books?
I mean, anybody can publish books. I mean, go for it. If somebody wants to, you know, the more of the books we get out there, the better. If they have something that takes off and does great, then great on them. I mean, there's so many independent publishers now. I mean, you have the IBPA, which is the Independent Book Publishers Association, who, you know, helps take care of independent publishers. And it's definitely a growing thing right now where there is just a lot more indie publishers, and you know, because you have the big 5, you know, and not everyone's going to get a deal with Simon & Schuster. So these smaller ones are making it, you know, workable for somebody who is brand new to get a book out there. You know, they may or may not take off. In terms of what we're doing with Writers of the Future, is it's already established. It's like a known anthology. You know, every year, you know, it'll get picked up by, you know, through Barnes and Noble and Amazon and tons of independent bookstores and Books A Million and bookstores all over the place, because it's already a national best-selling anthology. So getting in the anthology for Writers of the Future is going to, you know, maybe put more eyeballs on somebody's story as opposed to a small, brand new indie publisher. But, you know, I think it's a great thing to have, you know, books getting out any way possible.
Yeah, indies are great,
Yeah.
you know, because they also go through their publishing. Like, the big difference between an indie publisher and like she's talking about the big 5s like Simon & Schuster, Random House, whatnot, is that an indie publisher will split. You know, they don't do the big advances. What they will do is that the terms are you're going to get either split 50-50, or you'll get 45% and they'll get 55% of all sales. Whereas with the big publishing houses, you'll get an advance and then you'll get 10-15%. Maybe the first book is going to be even less. And then as you become more established, it gets up to 10 or 15% royalties on what you sold. So they have you know, that's just how they operate. But the indies are a little bit more open to be able to work with you. And that's where it's important that you've got, especially if you go indie, to have your own audience. You need to bring, what are you bringing to the party? You know, so it's not just a matter of you wrote a good story, but also, can you help with your own social presence? Do you have a blog? Do you have a podcast? Do you have Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, that people will follow you, so that when you come out with a book, like Andy Weir, he had his whole thing that happened with his book was he was posting it on his, I think it was on his journal, a chapter as it was going through, and then by the time he was done, he had his book, which was, he had so many people following it, they wanted to buy his book, and so it became a bestseller. But that's very much the exception to the rule. But an indie publisher will be someone who you can, if you're willing to work at it, which is what obviously Andy was, you can do very, very well, making a lot of money as an indie as a book-selling author through an indie publisher.
I know of authors who have published numerous books from indie publishers as well as their own self-publishing, and they're not making anything. They said that basically they're lucky if they break even on a book, to be absolutely blunt. If they sell 100 copies, it's a good book sale. Yet I know there are people out there who are still getting signed by publishing companies, but is it still possible with the amount of books out there? And I'm not saying that we have too many books, because I don't think you could have too many books like you could have too many radio shows on the same topic. But is it still possible for aspiring writers out there to say, hey, I want to become an author and I want to make a career out of this? Is it possible, or has it gone back to the ways of the starving artist?
It's possible. It's going to also depend a lot on, how much effort they put into it. You get these new authors and they'll, team up with several other authors, or a small indie publisher will get a booth at one of these Comic-Con conventions, these small little events. I don't know which ones you have up there in your area, but a lot of them are up to 100,000 plus people. And, you can definitely get a new fan base at an event like that, plus creating blogs. But, it's going to depend also on how much effort people put into it.
But are the days, Emily, of the Tom Clancy's, the Stephen Kings, the Clive Cusslers, are those over?
Oh, no, definitely not. No, I mean, each we keep getting new ones. I mean, we obviously went through the whole Harry Potter phase, and Andy Weir with The Martian, and
Pat Rothfuss is one of our winners a few years ago with Writers of the Future. He was one of those, like sort of like what you're referring to. He wrote a novel, and he was shopping it around for a couple of years, and nobody was interested in it. And then someone told him, "Have you heard about Writers of the Future?" And so he looked it up, and then so he took one of his chapters. It was called The Road to Levanshire, and he turned that into a short story. He made it into a short story and submitted that, and won. And he met Kevin Anderson, one of our judges, who's one of the authors that's doing all the prequels to the Dune series, and he just one of the books that just got being published as part of what's being made in the new Dune movie coming out later this year. And so Kevin introduced him to his agent, who then introduced him to a publisher who published his book. And so he came out, and he was New York Times bestseller. His second novel came out, and it was number one on the New York Times bestseller list. So, we have, him. There's been several of our writers that they have to work at him. He obviously works very hard to put together his books. But several of our authors have gone on, roughly probably about 50-60% to a career in writing. Some it's a full-time career. Sometimes it's in addition to their day job. We've got one guy up in Toronto named John Haas, who's he's a horror writer. So he's just keeping working on it, and he's hoping in the next couple of years to be transitioning from having a day job to being able to quit his day job and just be full-time as a writer. So it definitely still happens, but a person has to work on it. But that's why Writers of the Future is so important in the Writers of the Future Forum, because you have like-minded people willing to work with you and just give you that helping hand on what you need to do to be able to make it. When people go into the forum, they can ask all kinds of questions about the business of writing, not just how to write a story, but what's the business of it, and what's a good deal, what's a bad deal? You wrote this, you spent 2 years putting together this book, and you can blow it by signing a bad contract, by getting a bum, agent. So you can get some tips too to help you on that too, to prevent some of those other horror stories that will happen, that will get bandied around. But don't have to happen because you got other people willing to help you with the writers of the future.
We've got about 4.5 minutes before we need to get on out of here for hour number 1 and say hello to hour number 2 after the break. John
My gosh, that went fast.
I know. John and Emily Goodwin are our guests tonight on Spaced Out Radio. We're talking books. You know, for the genre that we're in, which is sci-fi, which is paranormal, supernatural, I mean, not to beat a dead horse here, but everyone and their dog has become an author. All right. We don't have a lot of Jim Mars type people out there anymore. Sure, we have Grant Cameron, we have Richard Dolan, we have, other people along those lines. But for the many aspiring authors out there, when it comes to the paranormal or supernatural, can we ever have an overabundance on the same topic?
My answer, the immediate answer to that is no. Because if it's a good story, and you talk to somebody who reads, if you talk to somebody who reads one book a year, then that's not the audience we want to talk to right now. For someone who likes reading a good book, if it's a good book, somebody will make time to read it. So a bad book, if you only have 5 books to choose from, or if you've got 500 books to choose from, is still a bad book. If it's a good book, the only advantage of the fact you've got 100 books is because it's a big genre. People are really, it's got a big audience. So there is a big audience in the paranormal. So there's a lot of people, there's a glut of books, possibly, but in terms of good books, there's not a glut of good books. And you were talking about that. So the thing isn't to write or not write paranormal, it's to write good paranormal. And that's where, again, our online workshop, which is taught by Orson Scott Card, who's the author of Dune, and Tim Powers, of Ender's Game, and Tim Powers, who's the author of On Stranger Tides, which was made into that Pirates of the Caribbean movie, and he's also a 2-time World Fantasy Award winner, and Dave Farland, who's a world-class epic fantasy author, and he's also coordinating judge for Writers of the Future. They did 13 different videos on all the different parts of writing a story. And there's also 10 essays that were written by L. Ron Hubbard in the 30s and 40s, which these judges use. All of our judges use them because they're still work now is what they did when he first wrote them in the various magazines for aspiring writers. So if you learn how to write a good story, that will sell. So that's the difference. It's not that there's a glut of stories, it's that are they good stories or not? And that's the thing that needs to be resolved for a person.
Okay, so in this field, John, what makes a good story? Is it a telling tale like we saw in the movie The Conjuring, or is it something, of gluing? I don't really consider this authoring a book, but there's a lot of people out there who are collecting a lot of different people's stories, gluing them together and after transcribing them, and then calling themselves an author.
Well, originality has a lot to do with it. Finding a new idea, a new angle, something new to write about that hasn't been tried before.
Yeah, and the thing is on a paranormal story, you can have something where it's this epic intergalactic, or you can have something where we had one of our stories that won, I think it was last year in volume Z35 or 36 of Writers of the Future, about a girl, who befriended an alien that came down to Earth, and a relationship that developed. It was like a real simple little plot, but it was just very enchanting. Just the whole thing of what would be, totally foreign alien perceptions from the alien coming down. Like we're used to seeing and thinking and smelling and feeling certain ways, emotions, the whole thing. A whole foreign, literally alien approach that. So what the author did on that was what would be that alien approach to this? And she was actually, by the way, a Canadian author too that did that. It was fantastic. It was a very simple little storyline, but just because of that thing of how would it be communicated, how an alien would view a romantic relationship or a relationship with somebody versus a human.
John, hold on right there. Hold that thought right there, because we are going to go to break here at the top of the hour. 1 hour down, 2 hours to go. John and Emily Goodwin, writers of the future. Let's get into some sci-fi next with these two very talented individuals. We'll be back right after this on Spaced Out Radio. Okay, guys, sit tight. I'm just going to run my dogs outside. I'll be right back, okay?
Cool it is.
All right.
YouTube channel where we store all of the SOR show archives for free. And as an added bonus, every 2 weeks I'm posting brand new content on Cryptid Tales, where I will get into some of the spookier legends and folklore from around the world and tell the stories that go with them. Find us at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio and check out Cryptid Tales today. Drop a comment and let me know what you want to hear. See you there.
We are scouring the world for the most intriguing stories of your day. Take the time to read up on the SOR Newswire, where our team, led by Captain Shirk, will deliver to you some of the best paranormal and supernatural news, along with some stories that will blow your mind from the weird to the wacky. It's the news outside the news that piques interest, and that's what we're looking to deliver to you. The SOR Newswire, only at spacedoutradio.com.
Hello, space travelers. It's me again, Carl. Don't forget to join the Space Travelers Club for just $5 a month and follow Spaced Out Radio on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio. Our Instagram, Dave Scott SOR. Our Facebook page is Spaced Out Radio Show. Our archives are free at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Come woo it up with Spaced Out Radio today. Bye!
Hey, Space Travelers, this is John Resig, founder of the Chive and Chive Charities. If you know anything about our website, you know we like to do things a little differently. We're not some faceless organization collecting money for a nebulous cause. Our donor dollars go directly toward life-improving items. Then we give those items directly to an underdog who needs it most. To become a donor with Spaced Out Radio's official charity, Chive Charities, just go to chivecharities.org/donate.
Are you an experiencer of something strange that can't be explained? Do you want help finding out what's going on? I'm Ryan Stacy, head of the Experiencer Support Association, otherwise known as TESSA. We've teamed up with Spaced Out Radio to investigate cases filled out in the SOR Sightlines report. We are independent and there's no cost to what we do. All we need is your experience. Let's find out what's happening together on the SOR Sightlines report.
Are you intrigued by Paranormal Talk Radio? You'll love the new Paranormal Radio app from TalkStream Live. You'll find a great selection of talk shows covering UFOs, ghosts, strange phenomena, and much more. Download the Paranormal Radio app now and start listening to the very best in paranormal talk entertainment, including the network you're listening to right now, the Paranormal Radio app, free in Google Play and the iOS App Store.
We all know on Spaced Out Radio we love a good beard and mustache, so why not take care of your facial hair with Mighty Moose Beard Oil? Made in Canada, we're taking care of beards and stashes around the world. We use 100% natural ingredients with our oils and balms to make your whiskers feel silky smooth. Use promo code SOR2019 at mightymoosebeard.com today.
The SOR Vault is open for business, and do we have some cool swag for you to pick up? All you have to do is head over to our website and click on the SOR Vault. You have a variety of cool logos to choose from, and put them on anything you want. T-shirts, hoodies, hats, coffee mugs, you name it, we can get it to you. So do your shopping by supporting the store you love. Get your Spaced Out Radio swag at the SOR Vault today.
For the price of 1 cup of coffee a month, you can become an SOR Space Traveler. The Space Travelers Club is a place where you can interact with other listeners, either live during the show or on our great forum. We want your stories, pictures, comments, and ideas. You'll get live video streams, exclusive content, and be a part of our newsletter. Stay in touch with everything SOR. The Space Travelers Club is just $5 a month at spacedoutradio.com.
I'm feeling a little spicy tonight. What to do? What to do?
Why not get Bumblefuck?
4 million Scoville units of pure hard rock. Bumblefoot hot.
All right, guys, I'm back.
Look at that hair.
What's that?
No.
Your hair.
Santa Claus, move over. Santa Claus, move over.
I'm growing it out again.
Amazing hair.
It is.
Amazing beard.
No male pattern baldness at all.
No.
Mm-hmm. That's what we like about it. That's what we like.
Yep.
But I'm tempted right now over the last few days to shave my beard. It's starting to drive me nuts.
It's pretty cool looking.
I know. But, is what it is.
Is this a COVID beard, or is this something that...
No, this is just I'm going to do what I want beard. This is my stay warm in the wintertime in Canada beard.
Yeah.
How long have you been growing that? Did you get that long?
I think September, October.
Wow.
Yeah. It slows down during the winter, and then it'll pick back up here. But I'm just at the point where I'm kind of sick of it, to be honest.
Sure.
Yeah. The hair, though, I'm not done with the hair yet.
No, hair's cool.
Thank you. I can give you some if you want. I got lots. All right.
I see that.
All right, guys, hold on here. 5 seconds.
You're listening to Spaced Out Radio with Dave Scott. Follow Dave on Twitter @SpacedOutRadio and on Facebook, Spaced Out Radio Show.
Second hour of Spaced Out Radio is now underway. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us. We really do appreciate earning your listening ears. Want to say hello to everyone listening in on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on KPNL, Revolution Radio, and TalkStream Live. All of our archives are free for you by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Just do old Davey the favor, hit that subscribe button. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. What do you got for us, Clam? Obganiate. Obganiate is your password. Use it wisely, Space Travelers, as the Clam sets a password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. Our website, spacedoutradio.com, has a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot and reading up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire. Follow us on Twitter @SpacedOutRadio and on Instagram @Spaced Out Radio Show. We continue on tonight with John and Emily Goodwin. Writers of the Future is the topic tonight as we discuss how to get into this great contest, number one, but number two, how to become a good writer. Number three, there are some great topics out there, like sci-fi, and we're going to get into that right now. John, Emily, welcome back.
Thank you very much, Dave.
Not a problem. We love having you here. I want to kick things off right off the bat, if you don't mind, with just the idea that you guys, Writers of the Future, are part of L. Ron Hubbard, and there's always a little bit of controversy around L. Ron Hubbard and the Scientology movement around, and I'm not going to get into a big religious text here because I think it's irrelevant to the conversation, but there's a lot of people out there who maybe put two and two together and say, well, I don't really want to be involved with the whole Scientology aspect. How do you separate Writers of the Future and the beautiful part about the books from the religious side?
Well, the contest actually started, probably the easiest way is just to talk about the history of how it evolved as a competition. In the 30s and 40s, when L. Ron Hubbard was a writer, he was a fiction writer, he was writing in all the different genres. And he wrote for all the big pulp magazines. And he was one of the most popular ones. And he published upwards of 200 stories in the 30s and 40s. And the last genre he wrote in was science fiction and fantasy with Astounding Science Fiction. And the whole thing on that was he saw that science fiction was like a herald of possibility. And so after World War II, when Korea was building up, and he was a lieutenant in the Navy, and he experienced a lot of his friends and losing, like everybody in the war did, losing friends and whatnot. He met with Robert Heinlein and a few other authors at Heinlein's home in California, and they discussed creating a space race, because at that point there was an arms race that was happening, escalating between the United States and Russia. And so they started writing a lot of stories to build up the thing with let's get man to the moon. Let's get them fighting an enemy that we can all agree on is an enemy, which is out there, the unknown of space. And so that became like the thing. And so attention went off of so much the arms and went more on let's how do we get into space? And so you had Sputnik was the first one that made it up. But then the United States was right after that, and then we were the first ones on the moon from the United States. And it kind of like petered out at that point. But what they wanted to do, they accomplished their objective was to create a space race with science fiction. Well, around that time also, he would become a member of the Explorers Club and was doing some research going in up to Alaska. His ship broke down, so he stayed there in Ketchikan, Alaska for about 3 months during the winter, and he created his first writing contest, because Ketchikan is very artsy. It's an artsy community, and so there's a lot of writers besides the fishermen. And he started this Golden Pen Award that he did there, and that was actually the predecessor to Writers of the Future. Well, in 1950, when he wrote this, a few years later, in 1950, he wrote Dianetics, and that's when the Dianetics and a few years later Scientology started. But he already had quite a following and quite an established pattern of helping aspiring writers up to that point. So now we come forward to 1980, when he was celebrating 50 years as a professional writer. He wrote Battlefield Earth, and that's when we brought Jim Mars on, and he helped us as a spokesperson a few years ago to help us on that campaign. But he wrote that book, and it became a New York Times bestseller and international bestseller, and won several awards. Right after that, he started Writers of the Future and decided, okay, he's funding that out of his royalties, and he's, that's where it comes. When he passed away in 1986, all of his everything that he had, all of his assets, went to the church, and specifically Church of Spiritual Trust, and that's where all the royalties go. And so that's where the money comes to fund Writers of the Future, and it's been that way all the time. And that's very open with them. We're very transparent on that, how that money goes there on that, and that's because the vast majority of what he left of his legacy was the nonfiction. The fiction part of it and this contest was put in the will to continue funding this contest, in perpetuity. So we're continuing to fund this contest and keep it going now in its 38th year. So the fact that we've got all the judges that we have, and the judges we have are just all over the spectrum on religion. We've got Jewish, we've got Mormon, there's Catholic, there's agnostic, there's atheist, there's Protestant, there's African, the various, there's all types of religions connected with the judges, and it's just not part of what the contest is. That's not what was important about it. What was important about it was providing for the future of science fiction and fantasy, because of what he said. He saw science fiction as a herald of possibility. And when we have our annual awards events, a lot of times we've had astronauts, we've had engineers, we had several engineers who from JPL who, the last 3 Mars rovers, we've had engineers that have built various parts of those rovers that have spoken and said, look, I got my start from reading science fiction. That's what inspired me, and that's why maybe I wondered how I could do that. So that's part of why he keeps it going and why we continue to do that. And so when you have the judges that we have, which is just literally a who's who panel of judges, who put their name on there saying that, look, this is 1,000% bona fide what it does, and they wish they had the kind of resources that L. Ron Hubbard had to be able to create this contest, because they would love to do that, but at least they can do is they can support it and lend their name to it, because the number of products that have come from Writers of the Future is one big review magazine this last on volume 36 said no single source has provided more for the future of science fiction than Writers of the Future. And we're very proud about that. We work hard for that. And I'm totally willing to answer whatever questions about Scientology, but that's not what this is about. Yes, it's the same author that wrote the Scientology books as that wrote Battlefield Earth, that wrote Mission Earth, that wrote the hundreds of other stories that were published too, and that created this L. Ron Hubbard contest. So hopefully that answers your question.
No, I appreciate that. And the one thing about it is it's open to everybody, every race, religion,
Correct.
creed. It doesn't matter. So for the fact that it does have L. Ron Hubbard's name, and unfortunately in some circles it is considered a controversial type name, it really doesn't matter to the competition.
Correct. And I got to tell you something too. I handle all the social media for L. Ron Hubbard, for Writers of the Future, Galaxy Press, Battlefield Earth, Mission Earth. I do Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and I've got 2 YouTube pages for Writers of the Future and Galaxy Press. And sure, there's some people that come in that like to, the trolls that come in, people that like to spread, their misinformation and stuff, and just try to, do what those kind of people do. But the vast majority of what I deal with is people are just really appreciative of the fact that, somebody's taken enough care to actually provide for the aspiring writer and aspiring artists. And it's even more so now that budgets continue to be chopped on these types of programs in schools. You don't have some place where you can just for free enter a contest. It's no vanity publishing. It's no like, okay, if you pay $50, you can enter the contest, and if you win, you got a good chance of winning. No, it's not that at all. He pays, Mr. Hubbard, out of his royalties, pays for the fact that you don't have any entry fees. The winners are flown out to Hollywood for a week-long workshop, an amazing Hollywood gala banquet and award ceremony. There's cash prizes. The 2 grand prize winners for the Writers Contest and Illustrators Contest receive $5,000. And the winners are wherever they are. They're flown out from wherever they are. The contest pays for that. It pays for the hotel, which is either at the this year's going to be the Roosevelt Hotel here in Hollywood. So it's nobody else does that, and the judge will say, "Look, don't get used to this. It's not going to happen for your next book, for your next story." But that's something. Just the amount of care that they had on it. So if someone wants to look at that and go and try to create some spurious comments about it, it's like, okay, I don't even have to comment anymore because other people that follow Writers of the Future and Battlefield Earth and the R100 pages will deal with those communications themselves. It's just so not true. You look at somebody's products. If you want to see, is somebody good or not good, what's their intention? What are they intending to do? Are they doing what they intended to do? And so that's, what's been created with this contest that it's been going on for 38 years. Are you a science fiction fan yourself at all?
I would say I'm a pseudo science fiction fan.
Yeah, just like the judges that we've got for this competition, the original judges were like Frank Herbert, who's he wrote Dune. He had Anne McCaffrey, who's very famous as a dragon, the Dragon series. We've had, let's see, I'm just gonna go through Kevin Anderson. He's been like 200 books. He was a winner. No, he wasn't a winner. He entered like 20 times, didn't win, but he became a pro writer, so he became a judge. Doug Beeson is retired. He was the head of security for Los Alamos, captain in the Air Force. Greg Benford is doctor at UC Santa Barbara. He teaches astrophysics. Ben Bova was a judge. Aldous Budrus, Ramsey Campbell, Orson Scott Card, Hal Clement, Brian Herbert, who's the son of Frank Herbert, who was also a judge. Anne McCaffrey, C.L. Moore, Catherine Moore, Larry Niven, Andre Norton, Fred Pohl, Jerry Purnell, Tim Powers, Charles Sheffield, Robert Silverberg, Theodore Sturgeon, Jack Williamson, Gene Wolfe, Roger Zelazny. Those are major names in science fiction that all lent their name to it because they saw that there was finally something that leveled the playing field. You don't have magazines out there that will publish a new writer because there's no money in it. If a magazine is going to sell, they need big names. This is the only publication. It's the best-selling science fiction anthology out there, by the way, but it's the only one that has basically all new writers, unknown names, but because you've got the L. Ron Hubbard Rise of the Future on there, and then we have the judges that help support it, it does really well and continues to do well.
Yeah, and somebody else was just asking on the comments there, but people who write their stories and submit, they keep the rights to their stories. It gets published in the anthology, but they keep the rights to it, and they can resell their story again elsewhere.
With very little difficulty.
Yes.
Talk about sci-fi, because L. Ron Hubbard was very much into science fiction.
Sure.
He was very much into what is out there in space, allowing his imagination and his creativity to run wild. And, you know, the funny part about it is a lot of what he wrote about 60, 70 years ago seems to be coming to fruition slowly but surely in today's day and age. You know, how have we transcended from what L. Ron Hubbard was writing as a young author to where we are today? Does it amaze you, John?
It does, and it's one reason why it does is that, and the reason why he was brought into science fiction by the publishing house was called Street and Smith. And the reason why he was brought into it is because up to that point, up to what now is known as the golden age of science fiction, it was mostly ray guns and robots and spaceships. And there weren't really people, you know, like the real human factor into the storytelling. And because he was a very popular adventure writer, he was brought into it to be able to add the adventure, the sense of adventure, the human factor into the stories. And so people haven't really changed. You know, a schnook is still a schnook, you know, whether they're 70 years ago or now, you know, and a person that learns to do the right thing, which is one thing that Robert Heinlein said. You know, I always thought there were a certain number of storylines. You showed me that there's another one. It's the man that learned better, or the person that learned better, you know, to be politically correct here. But it's, you know, some of it starts off, they're not living necessarily a straight life. They're like, you know, they're doing a few things that are wrong or not right, and just they come up to a situation in life that they have to deal with, that they have to make a decision to do the right thing. And in stories they do, and they come out, and so it applies now as it did back then. So we find a lot of people really enjoy the stories, and what's funny is that we republished all his pulp fiction from the 30s and 40s, and it was a project we did from 2008 to 2012. And the reviews that we got from like Publishers Weekly and Library Journal and Book List and so many other of our reviewers were just like, man, these are great stories. This pulp fiction, you know, it pulls you, you know, back then you've got one or two, maybe three paragraphs to pull a person into the story or they're out of there. And so he was a master at that. And so you've got these stories that will accomplish that. And so you have them now today, you read them and you're like, wow, it still applies, because people are still people. They're still, you know, maybe they drive different cars. Maybe they don't have to double clutch anymore or have to, you know, to push the starter button, but it's still, you know, that guy is going to do the same types of things. They're still going to go be ethical or not ethical. They're still going to keep their word or not keep the word. They're going to be able to win the day or not. So it still applies, and people still like reading those stories and getting totally transfixed and being transported by those stories, whether it's science fiction or as Western or as adventure, sea adventure, mystery. So then when he came out in 1980 and wrote Battlefield Earth, which is now, that's 40 years, you know, it was, I mean, that was on the premise of Voyager being picked up by an alien spacecraft, and you know, and wanting to, because Voyager had the picture of Earth, and it was the disc was made of gold, which in the storyline was a very rare metal in the universe, in the galaxy, and so this intergalactic mining company sent a gas drone to wipe out Earth, and so it takes place 1,000 years in the future, in the year 3000, and this is where you have the last remnants of humanity working to fight and take back the planet. And so it's been one of the best-selling science fiction books of all time, along with Dune and right now Ender's Game. Yeah, it does really well because of that. And in that time, he wrote, you know, the various devices that, you know, we didn't know about then, but predicted, like the Kindle. He talked about, you know, having devices that you'd be able to read whole books on. and they'd eventually talk to you as well. It's like that was well before this stuff happened. And then a year later, he wrote Mission Earth. Now, Mission Earth that's a whole different thing. That's like satire, and it's like an alien's view of planet Earth. Even though that was written in 1981, he talked about what you see happening right now with the drugs, the corruption, the politicians, the shyster lawyers, the pollution, all the stuff that's happening, running the planet through oil prices. It just it's pretty amazing how you start looking at, because we started doing a whole campaign on this thing here, and it's amazing just how people are just like, oh my gosh, he said that 40 years ago, because this is the stuff that's happening right now. Except then the culprit was in the book J.D. Rocket Center.
So the fact that people still have a grand imagination, and with everything that's happening in the UFO world right now, we may have to carry this across the break here, as we only have about 3.5 minutes. Do we see more excitement and activity around the UFO side of everything?
I think definitely right now. I don't know if it's going to happen or not, but in June is supposed to be the big release from the U.S. government on what's been being withheld. Just even the fact that it's being talked about, there's just so much buzz happening about UFOs. Yes, UFOs no. A couple of years ago, we went at San Diego Comic-Con. We did an interview on probably 50 different people on, do you believe in aliens? Do you believe in UFOs? And a vast majority said yes, but we had people that said no, but a vast majority said yes with their reasoning for it. And it was just, every time I run those videos on my social media posts, those do the best. People are so interested. It creates so much engagement. People are really interested in that. It's a real topic, and it's something that the governments are totally unprepared to deal with. So it's totally, wide open to an author to be able to come up and deal with what would happen. Just take a real life scenario of some of these different things that have been written about, on, that Navy fighter pilot a couple of years ago that became a very popular video, that 15 seconds, whatever it is. Taking that as a theme and running with that, oh my gosh, that would have, the adrenaline be pumping in that thing. What would happen on these things? And there's some amazing stories out there already, but we've not come close to reaching any saturation on that.
Jim Marrs was one of your writers. And you know the late Jim Marrs very well, and so does many people who have followed that. Is there anybody in the lineup right now? I wouldn't say Preston Dennett is that way. He's a different style. But is there anybody kind of picking up that slack left by Jim Marrs on the UFO front?
Boy, I sure wish. I've been looking. I was going to ask you. I don't know. I know there's a lot of people that do get in that. I know you've obviously have been very involved with this, and in terms of your knowledge is incredible. I know that Joe Montaldo is, and I know that there's been a few other people that I've talked to, but in terms of being a writer that actually is able to put it, thought to paper, it's Jim was definitely very unique, and he was just such a dear friend.
He just had a huge wealth of information.
He had a peanut in everything.
He could say lollipop, and he would any word came out of your mouth, he'd have a story behind that. It was just amazing. So if you find an author like that, let us know. If we run into one, we will let you know. But yeah, Jim was amazing.
Well, that's the hard part, is always trying to find someone to fill the shoes of a legend.
Yeah.
And with social media today the way it is, and the way that everything has been broken down into finite detail, where we don't see a lot of rounded journalism or rounded research like we do with Jim Marrs or Grant Cameron. Grant Cameron would probably be the best one that I know out there. But we just don't see that anymore. Everything is so finite. And we'll get into that and more when we come back on Spaced Out Radio, as we are joined with John and Emily Goodwin, writers of the future, is what we're talking about tonight. Ever wanted to write a book? Check out Writers of the Future. They are looking, and they are seeking, and they are wanting. Never hurts to try. Follow the passion. Follow the dream. Get to your computer, keyboard, and start typing away. We continue with Spaced Out Radio after this. All right, we're clear? Flying on by here. Flying on by.
Sure is.
Yeah.
When you say we're almost up with that half hour, I say, oh my gosh.
Wow.
Right? Give me 2 seconds here. I just got to do my commercial for Gary the Dutchman, owner of Mighty Moose Beard Oil, MightyMooseBeard.com. I'm using the winter blend tonight on my great whiskers. Not gray, great whiskers. Just throw a little bit on your hand like so. Rub it into your hands, and then just massage it in. Oh, it just smells so damn good. Ron Bumblefoot Thal, who does our music, he's loving the Winter Blend by Mighty Moose Beard Oil at MightyMooseBeard.com. For you, the Spaced Out Radio listeners, all we have to do is use promo code SOR2019. Gary the Dutchman's going to give you a break. When's the last time you caught a financial break from a Dutchman? It never happens. It never happens, but it is happening here because with Spaced Out Radio, we can work miracles sometimes. You know, and for the ladies, it works great in your hair. It provides natural oils because there are no chemicals. And guess what? It helps eliminate split ends. MightyMooseBeard.com. Use promo code SOR2019. Tell Gary the Dutchman that you want a deal, and he's going to give you one. You know, I know. It's unbelievable. Mighty Moose Beard Oil. Go to MightyMooseBeard.com. We would appreciate it. All right. Hi, Mr. Duffy. Big Bad Duff. Good to see you back. And there's John and Emily. That's probably Emily writing there with writers and illustrators of the future. Hey, make sure you guys hit that subscribe button. Getting on this show isn't free. You need to hit that subscribe button. Hi, Cat the Kit. You're looking lovely tonight. I meant you, Emily. Hit that subscribe button. Because I could end the interview real quick if you don't hit that subscribe button. Teasing, of course. Teasing. Hey, Chris Moe. What's happening? I'm having fun, John. And Emily, I'm having fun, just like we always do.
Yeah, we are too.
You want some beard, John? I know you Hollywood types. Cause I could. John, I'll give you.
Your fingers through it like that. A sandwich is going to come out or something.
John, I'll give you a choice here. I'll give you this one here, or I have a previous beard of mine up on the shelf here in the studio. You can have either one.
You're kidding me.
No, I'm dead serious. I can even show it to you.
Oh, my gosh.
I can even show it to you. Hold on.
Okay.
There's my previous beard right there. Right there. John, you
Holy
can have
moly.
that one if you want, or you can have the one on my face. Really is your choice.
I think that beard looks lonely. So it needs a partner. So when the beard comes off your face, you should give it as a partner to you, so you have a pair.
Hold on, I can't hear you, my friend. I gotta sit back down, put my headphones on. What was that?
What I was saying was that one beard in the bag looks lonely. So I think when this one comes off, you should just put it next to it so they've got like a pair. So your beard won't be alone.
Well, you know what? I actually, as weird as it sounds, I have 2 listeners who've sent me beards, and I got a third one on the way. I don't know why. You know, I don't know why, but I never turned down something from the listeners.
He's going to start his own contest, Beards of the Future.
Yeah, we're going to have the Beards of the Future. Yep, that's a good title. I'm going to copyright that before you. Yeah. It's all good. It's all good. All right, we got 1 minute here, guys. 1 minute.
Okay.
Fabster, Vinny wants to wear that bag. He wants to wear that bag of beard. Big thank you to Andrew for the super chat tonight. It's a great way to support what we do on this show on a nightly basis, and we thank Andrew for that. Big thank you to everyone who is listening on in, who's given us a thumbs up, and all of our new subscribers tuning on in. And, of course, we love our veterans around here, so if you're a veteran, thank you so much for your service and for listening to Spaced Out Radio. We really do appreciate it. We're going to get going here in about 10 seconds, just over 10 seconds here. So sit back, relax. More Davey coming up here in a couple of moments, like 5 seconds. Here we go. We passed the halfway point of Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott, the bearded wonder from the frozen tundra of Canada. Thank you so much for tuning us in. We want to say hello to everyone checking us on out, maybe for the first time. Hope you're enjoying yourself. And we want to say that all of our archives are free for you by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. The only thing I ask for in return, hit that subscribe button. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot and reading up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show. We continue on tonight, Writers of the Future. We are joined by John and Emily Goodwin. They're both in the publishing biz, so if you're a writer, hey, these are the people to contact. And we were talking a little bit of sci-fi and UFOs right before the break. And John, Emily, welcome back.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
You're very, very welcome. We were talking UFOs and the fact that this is a subject where that next big power writer, that next big Jim Mars, who has contacts all over the place, this is really what you search for. If anybody, and John, maybe explain, if anybody wants to take that role, the job is open, but you got to bring something to the table, and you got to bring,
right.
You got to be able to delve deep into this, right?
That's right. And I know that the big publishers, because he was publishing through, I think it was Simon & Schuster.
Yeah, Simon & Schuster.
Yeah, that was publishing his book. So there was a definite demand for it. And I mean, they were all, everything he publishes is an international bestseller. I know that he definitely did his nut with all the fact checking that was done, all of it, because he made a lot of different statements and a lot of claims. So he had to have, he was very thorough on his fact checking. And actually, after he passed, I was speaking with his wife, and they had two houses. In two houses, they were all full of all of his notes. And she said he never threw anything away. There were movie tickets from a movie they'd seen like 30 years before that were in there. It was just like he didn't throw anything away, but all of his notes, all of his research, it was all, he kept it all. He was just very meticulous because he knew that anything that he would have to put in the book would have to be documented. If it was anything that didn't follow whatever was agreed upon or accepted way of thinking, then he would have to really substantiate that, with documentation. So that's something that anybody who is looking at that type of an activity, to get into the mainstream, you need to be able to really back up your writing with documentation, with photos, or a lot of research evidence.
Okay, so how important is it, when you're a writer out there, to get those sources, whether they're government sources, whether they're scientists, because especially in the UFO game, you need those insiders in order to kind of break things down.
Yeah. It depends if you're writing fiction or nonfiction. If you're writing nonfiction, it's like super important. You have to have backup documentation. When you're writing fiction, it's pretty wide open. Like we talked earlier about the online course workshop that you can take at writersoffuture.com. in there they give you ideas to get inspiration, like, going to a library and finding, existing things to help inspire a story. So kind of when you're doing fiction, it's pretty wide open. If you're doing nonfiction, you're going to want to have that backup data.
But you did comment, Dave, about, Tom Clancy. I know he had definite friends in the military, and that helped to give him some information that he was able to do that he could then fictionalize, because some of the stuff he couldn't talk about, as real material. In fact, that was one of the things. Having some of these connections helps you so you don't get in trouble with what you're writing. There was one story with Astounding Science Fiction with the editor. They published this one story, and it talked about atomic bomb, and they had the FBI came into his offices. This is John Campbell, and said, and interrogated him because it hadn't dropped yet. It was still top secret, and so that somebody was writing a story about it was, how can you know this? So it does help to have some intel of what's going on out there to be able to on what you're writing, but it is. Like I said, it helped Tom Clancy to write good stories because he has some connections. But what Emily was saying is absolutely correct. When you do fiction, you can take off and make your own story happen. But one thing that does, and Tim Powers goes into this quite a bit too, the plausibility factor comes in where you have fact, fiction, fact. You can weave in some fiction in there, and it's believable because you've already bought the first 3 points that everybody knows, but now this thing goes and takes off into a different direction. That's what Tim Powers does with his stories. He takes a scene in history, and then there's a gap. What filled that gap? And he'll fill that gap with the fantastic. And it's totally plausible. He weaves it just very beautifully in so that it just the storyline flows. And like, really? Wow. It makes sense. And so that's something that a good storyteller will do. And one of your, anybody that's listening here that's looking to writing a story, again, that's why it's important to be a good reader as well, to know what gets done out there, to be able to see how that's accomplished.
Okay, so for the fictional side, what would you guys be looking for a good fictional story? But because it's not always about what's the word I'm looking, horror or just wild imagination. It's about creativity. So for the fictional side, Emily, what do you like?
Well, in Writers of the Future, we're looking for originality, and when you submit a story to Writers of the Future, that is it's short stories, so it's up to 17,000 words. The rules are laid out there at writersofthefuture.com, so anybody can see what the exact rules are and how to put it in and how to format it and stuff. But I know that the judges of the contest, for sure, they look for new original stories, new takes on, and it's sci-fi and fantasy and light horror. So any of those categories in speculative fiction is what we're looking for in Writers of the Future. And
just as a sample, here, what we do when we publish every book, we make a little teaser about all the different stories. So I'm just going to read a few of them on the current volume 36. An alien visits the International Space Station to provide a potential solution to climate change for a price, and that story is called The Trade. Foundations, a house is how you live on, how you keep giving to those you love after you're gone. It's not an easy thing to escape. Next one, a word that means everything. How does one interpret the most profound human concepts so an alien can understand? Catching my death. Will yours be a good death or a bad one? You'll have to catch it to find out. A prize in every box. Just what wonders or misery can a cereal box prize offer? Yellow and pink. How often would you reset time to save the love of your life? Educational tapes. Know there is nothing here to harm you. Only your choices. Only yourself. The educational tapes will prepare you for your choice. I accept or I decline. There are no other options. And so you read these stories and you're like, my gosh, they're so original. You kind of like, well, you can't say it's like this, because in Writers of the Future, the stories that we the writers that you're going to read in Writers of the Future, you're going to be reading in half a dozen years as they move on up to the ranks as a professional writer. So steampunk, you were reading that half a dozen years before it became the big craze in science fiction publishing. Several other different, when people uploading their contents into the internet, that was several years before it became a big craze. So what you read in Rise of the Future is ahead of the curve, which you see in mainstream publishing, because, like I said, these are going to be the writers you're going to be reading in half a dozen years. So, again, I take it back to what I said from the very get-go of our interview here. You got to read, and one thing to read is the Rise of the Future books, because these are the guys that are, this is their first professional publication. So anybody who's an aspiring writer, this is your next step. This is your jumping point from an amateur to pro. So these being short stories, and there's this, it's like they're not like something else out there, because this is all ahead of any other curve that's currently existing out there in publishing. So that gives you an idea of also what new ideas you can have, because these are all new ideas here. And if you read multiple volumes, you'll get the idea of like, wow, I can do that, or I got this idea. And like I said, some of these different stories are real simple points, just a simple little thing, and all of a sudden you build a whole story around it. And that's, you take a look at some of the major books that go out there, and like even Tom Sawyer, it's a simple storyline, but boy, it's a story that just, it communicates and it tells and it tells and it tells, and it's been a favorite story for so many generations.
It really has.
Yeah.
What about the paranormal? For a while there, I remember when you and I first started talking a couple of years ago, the one thing that, we were still in a time where the whole UFO news was kind of in its infancy, compared to what's going on now. But the paranormal was really the hot button topic on television shows, and everybody trying to find that next real haunted place around North America, if not the world. Has it taken a back seat because when it comes to hauntings and ghosts, it just seems like a bunch of regurgitated stories?
I don't think so. I don't think the fascination is going to lessen. I think, I think it's just becoming more and more open now.
It's more open. If you take a look at what's on television, and it still does really well there, the various paranormal shows. So, and again, what, I'll say this point again too. It's like, even where you have a scene where maybe somebody considers there's too much, if it's really good, that won't be a factor. It's going to be, if there's something that's got a lot, that means that there was a lot of demand for it. And there still would be a lot of demand if it's good. So if somebody's got something good, if somebody's got a good story idea, and you work out how to put that story to paper so that it communicates and has all the ingredients of a good story, the audience is there for good paranormal. And the fact that, somebody can say it's saturated, somebody can say it's blooded, somebody can say all these different things that would, all it is dissuading you from moving forward and doing something. Don't listen to it. Just, if you got a story and you tell it good, you will get somebody to read it. And the stories of people saying, yeah, well, I didn't get, I self-published and I didn't do well. I did my KDP publishing, Kindlepreneur, and I didn't make any money. I just broke even. I don't know if it's a good story. I don't know. So if you listen to people tell you there's no return in it, you're only getting a piece of the picture. You're getting a conclusion that's based on information that you don't know if it's valid or not. So if you really want to be a writer, don't let somebody tell you give up, before you even start. That's just, there's no game there at all. It's like, we had one of our, he passed away a few years ago, but the original, the editor and publisher of Locus Magazine would come over and speak to the winners every year. And he did his standard speech. He'd tell everybody, he would just go on a tirade quit, give up. And I said, why do you do that? And he said, if somebody they don't even know can convince them to not even continue writing, they don't have what it's going to take to be a writer. You know, a writer has to write no matter what. You know, it's in their bones, in their blood, and they got to persist on that stuff. So there are so many science fiction stories, there's so many paranormal stories, there's so many fantasy stories. You know, epic fantasy thought, okay, good, Harry Potter was done, we're done with epic fantasy. And then Brandon Sanderson comes out, and he sells, you know, oodles of books again, and you've got, you know, a good story is going to sell. And it doesn't matter that there's a lot of other stories in that same genre out there. A good story is going to sell. People want good stories. And if it's a huge genre, it's huge because there's a lot of readers.
What makes a good ghost story these days?
I don't really know so much on that one. I'm not tracking so much in the ghost stories. I was on the... I don't know. What I would do on that to be able to find out what would be a good ghost story would be to read some. I would just quickly go, and I can either go to Goodreads and search, you know, ghost stories, or just Google and find out ghost stories and just see something and just find something that interests me, and then just read it. You know, I mean, I read a lot, and I do a lot of stuff on my phone just because I'm constantly being sent stuff I have to read to get ready for different things. But then when I want to sit down and just enjoy something, I'll either listen to the audiobook and just relax, or read it as a print book. But I would just do that and find out something, and then just go, okay, that was pretty interesting. That's pretty interesting. And then I'd be able to answer your question. I just haven't done that for
had a good ghost story come into Writers of the Future just 3-4 years ago. Jake Marley won grand prize. That was a fantastic story.
What was that one about, Emily?
Let's see. Here, John's going to read the little...
Let me get that. Was line 34,
33.
33.
Jake Marley. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we definitely get a lot of ghost stories submitted to Writers of the Future, and they win from time to time for sure. Definitely, you know, a lot of people like a good ghost story, and they like to have a good chill.
Well, that's exactly it. You know.
Yeah.
And for our audience, they want to know where the good writers are.
They want the hair at the back of their neck to stand up. You know, I think that. Did you find it in there, John?
Here we go, acquisition. So, acquisition. Barlow has a talent for finding the dead, or do they find him? And it was just based on a story. There's a place out here in Southern California out there where it's a really spooky, it's a haunted area there, and you don't stop, because if you stop, you're going to get whatever's going to happen to you. So based upon that, Tim Powers tells that whole story too, where about that space. And so it was just a takeoff of that story, and it was really spooky, and it was really good, and it won him first place in a check for $5,000.
Very nice. Very nice. In regards to the sci-fi side of everything, you know, with the way technology is moving very fast, as we've got about 6 minutes to go here before we got to go to break at the top of the hour, I'm wondering if there's any new topics out there that we need to be looking at. So if I'm an aspiring writer and I say to you, John or Emily, give me a topic to write on, my mind is blank, because everything I'm thinking about, we already have it, or it's pushing towards that way in the future. What would be that next step of sci-fi writing?
Oh, that is super wide open. And that's the point on Writers of the Future, is we're looking for new original ideas. And we most certainly get a lot of new original ideas or different angles on it. Like, you know, somebody recently won with a cyberpunk story about, enhancing, well, it's kind of a drug, but gives you, special powers that and kind of rugged stories, and it's in the cyberpunk line. And there's a lot of subgenres right now for science fiction. You have the steampunk and the cyberpunk and the hard science fiction and the space opera science fiction and alien science fiction and what is there? There's a YA folklore science. There's like all kinds of subgenres now for science fiction, just because it's expanding so much to keep them all original.
Now, one thing that is happening that would be two ways you can go on this. One thing that they're taught at the Writers of the Future workshop is they're taught how to take a simple object and use that. There's actually an essay that Mr. Hubbard wrote called Magic Out of a Hat, where Arthur Burks was another big writer back in the day, had him turn around a story taking a trash can, so he had to figure out what was that, and it turned into Kabanka, and that then turned into the end of the Tsar regime in Russia, with the message tied in, sewn into the hat that didn't make it to them in time, so they were killed, and that was the end of the Tsar's regime. But that's one of the things that they have in Aldous Budrus. He had, I forget what it was, some little object that helped him on making his science fiction books. But right now we're getting so many amazing images coming in right now from our telescopes out in space, and we're finding new stuff right now that's happening on Mars because of the new rover that's there doing the stuff, and the helicopter that's getting its pictures. So things that were thought to happen are being disproven, and new things are being established or being speculated. That all opens up new doors for what could that be? You see something is at a cave in Mars, so all of a sudden it goes down to all these huge caverns down there with all this alien race that had to live down there because of a huge explosion that happened how many thousands of years ago on Mars that then led them down there. And so when the first colonists come there to Mars, they're going to meet these people, and then blah, blah, blah. Things like that can come up just if you also keep up with what's happening on technology advances. I just thought of that as I was talking, but there's all types of things that technology as it changes, and that's in the galaxy, but also micro as things get learned more and more, as scientists study more and more things. You can go small as well to make it very brand new in terms of science. So it goes both ways if you just keep up with what's happening in technology, because it opens up new vistas of things like, speculating, what about this now because of that?
Right.
So that's another way, too, to come up with an idea.
I know this may sound a little far-fetched, and we may need more time for this at the next half hour, but I'm curious what either of you think, if it does come out that we are being visited by aliens. How does that change the entire sci-fi writing landscape, that we've only published this pretty much in fiction up until this point, save for the experiencers' books that have been put together? But if aliens are all of a sudden announced that they are here and they are on the planet, and the UFOs that we're seeing in the sky are from an extraterrestrial species, will that change the entire writing genre in sci-fi?
Most likely. All the sci-fi will get moved over to current affairs section. But it will. I'm sure it will.
Yeah, what's going to happen, though, is, see, the whole thing is science fiction. What we have right now in a jet was science fiction 100 years ago. What we have in a spaceship, whatever we have right now in science was at one point science fiction. And so whatever the current scene is in science, no matter how advanced that is, something that doesn't exist will be science fiction until it is made to exist. And that's why, like I said, Mr. Hubbard called it, the herald of possibility, because you've got the scientists, you've got the engineers that are like, oh, wow, that's pretty interesting. How can I do that? I mean, there's some concepts in Battlefield Earth and in Mission Earth that's just like, it'd be awesome if they were created. Like there's, in Mission Earth, he goes over the whole thing. He even lays out how to do it and what kind of sport it would be to be able to get rid of the pollution in the environment. If somebody could do that, that would be awesome. And the type of fuel to be able to handle the pollution, that would be awesome. It doesn't exist right now, so at this point it's science fiction. But at the point that it's made to happen, then it's now science fact. But then it opens the doors to new, but what about new science fiction? So some things become, like Tom Clancy, again, going back to what you like to read, the stuff that he wrote, Clear and Present Danger, and some of those different stories, a lot of that stuff was science fiction, even though he didn't call it science fiction, but that's what it was. So it hadn't been released yet as technology, or hadn't quite been developed yet to be able to be what we have. So now it's no longer science fiction because it's actually science fact. but that's how that works. So
Right.
no matter where we get to on science fiction, it will become science fact, and then the new stuff will become new science fiction.
Hold on right there, John and Emily, because we are going to go to break here at the top of the hour. We have John and Emily Goodwin from Writers of the Future here for another 30 minutes. Then coming up after that, it's Magic 8 Ball time. So make sure if you're one of our chat rooms or on Twitter at hashtag Spaced Out Radio, you get your questions ready for the Magic 8 Ball because it's always accurate. We'll be back. All right, guys, I'm just going to run my dogs out. I'll be right back, okay?
Okay, good.
Okay.
Spaced Out Radio, we love a good beard and mustache. So why not take care of your facial hair with Mighty Moose Beard Oil? Made in Canada, we're taking care of beards and stashes around the world. We use 100% natural ingredients with our oils and balms to make your whiskers feel silky smooth. Use promo code SOR2019 at MightyMooseBeard.com today.
The party is always on at the Moose Vancouver. The Moose Vancouver is where you want to be when visiting Canada's West Coast. Open until 2 a.m. nightly, the Moose cranks up the rock while serving some of the best rated food in the city. The menu starts at $6.95. Why party anywhere else in Vancouver when the Moose is right there? Get your horns up and rock with the Moose, the official party bar of Spaced Out Radio.
We're adding to the entertainment online for Spaced Out Radio. I'm Amber Beckrud, and I want to invite you to subscribe to our YouTube channel and check out Cryptid Tales, where I will take you on a journey into some of the strangest legends and lore from around the world, relaying the stories to you of the strange creatures and experiences that people have had throughout time. You can find Cryptid Tales at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio, and while you're there, don't forget to check out our free archives and leave a comment. See you there.
I'm feeling a little spicy tonight. What to do? What to do?
Why not get bumblefuck?
4 million Scoville units of pure hard rock. Bumblefoot hot sauces come in 3 flavors. The burning bumble. Tone it down a bit with Bumblicious and throw the sauce on everything.
Spice it up. Bumble me, baby. Bumblefoot hot sauce. Get it today at kajans.com.
The SOR Vault is open for business, and do we have some cool swag for you to pick up? All you have to do is head over to our website and click on the SOR Vault. You have a variety of cool logos to choose from, and put them on anything you want. T-shirts, hoodies, hats, coffee mugs, you name it, we can get it to you. So do your shopping by supporting the store you love. Get your Spaced Out Radio swag at the SOR Vault today.
Hello everyone, this is Ryan Stacy from the Experiencer Support Association, otherwise known as TESSA. We're glad to team up with Spaced Out Radio to help investigate your experiences on the SOR Sightlines Report. Together, we'll investigate the strange sightings and occurrences you've had. We're looking for answers just like you. So fill out a Sightlines report on the Spaced Out Radio website and let's figure out what's going on together.
Looking for creative ways to get your company out in the public? How about advertising on Spaced Out Radio? Our sales department is waiting to hear from you, and we can work around any budget. From commercial spots to banners to special promotions, there are many opportunities to get your name and product out to our SOR listeners. For a price guide and more information, please contact us at sales@spacedoutradio.com.
Hello, space travelers. It's me again, Carl. Don't forget to join the Space Travelers Club for just $5 a month and follow Spaced Out Radio on Twitter @Spaced Out Radio. Our Instagram, Dave Scott SOR. Our Facebook page is Spaced Out Radio Show. Our archives are free at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Come woo it up with Spaced Out Radio today. Bye!
Hey, space travelers, this is John Resig, founder of the Chive and Chive Charities. If you know anything about our website, you know we like to do things a little differently. We're not some faceless organization collecting money for a nebulous cause. Our donor dollars go directly toward life-improving items. Then we give those items directly to an underdog who needs it most. To become a donor...
All right, I'm back, guys.
Hello.
Hello.
Hello. All right,
God,
so when we get...
The comments are crazy with the hamster movie titles.
Oh, yeah.
I'm dying over here.
Oh, yeah, when they get on a roll, they're pretty smart. Oh, damn it. I got a damn itch on my shoulder. My skin is so bloody dry from our weather changes.
Yeah.
Oh, it's crazy. We don't have humidity up here.
I was wondering if you had a humidifier in your room there.
No, I probably should. But my back scratchers works well enough and it feels better. I'm not going to lie. It feels damn good.
Yeah.
Excuse me. All right. When we get to the break at the bottom of the hour, just do me a favor and stick with me until I'm through the break, and I'll say a proper good night to you guys on the break, okay?
Perfect.
Yeah. That way it's all nice and polite and Canadian.
Canadian. Exactly.
Yeah, that's the way we do things around here. Yeah.
That's good. It's a good way to do it.
Yeah. It's like...
It's amazing that 2 hours have gone by so fast already.
I know. Is there anything you want to touch on this last half hour?
Well, we can definitely make sure they, maybe hit a couple times to tell them, where they go to be able to enter the contest or to take this online course.
Sure.
Because we really don't get them the opportunity because it's, like I say, it's all free, and I don't think you have a whole lot of guests on like us that just say, here's a free way to be able to learn to become a writer.
Right.
So,
hold on, guys. Here we go.
Yeah.
Would you like to connect with us? Head to spacedoutradio.com for all your latest show info. Now, back to Dave Scott and SOR.
Kicking off the third and final hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. Thank you so much for joining us. We really do appreciate earning your listening ears. Thank you to everyone tuning in around North America on our terrestrial stations and digitally on TalkStream Live, Revolution Radio, and KPNL. All of our archives are free by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Just do me the favor, hit that subscribe button. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. What do you got for us tonight, Clam? Oh, where'd it go? It disappeared on me. There it is. Obganiate. Obganiate is your password. Use it wisely, space travelers, as the Clam sets a password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot and reading up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire. Follow us on Twitter at Space Out Radio and on Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show. For the final time tonight, we introduce John and Emily Goodwin from Writers of the Future. And right before the break, guys, we were talking about the change in sci-fi if all of a sudden it is announced that there are aliens among us. And this all ties into the United States government on June 1st may or may not be announcing what they know about UFOs and whether or not they are from here. So, Emily, you kind of started to get into it, and John, you were reiterating about this. I want you to continue on that, if you don't mind. How would the sci-fi writing game change if all of a sudden everybody, the 7.8 billion people on this planet, learned that we are not alone in the universe?
Well, I think a bunch of people would initially be freaked out, but then, I'm sure the stories would change. I'm sure that, immediately, and as horrible as this sounds, near the beginning of 2020, we just started seeing a ton of pandemic stories, which is kind of the last thing you want to see when you're going into a pandemic. When you're living a pandemic, you don't want to be reading pandemic stories, but I think the moment people find out, if they expose and say, oh, okay, this whole time, there's aliens here, then I'm sure that immediately people will start writing about it and all kinds of scenarios and sensationalize it and everything. And I'm pretty sure, it'll be an inspiration for writing more stories. I don't think they'll drop the topic because of it. I think it would increase.
And it's also going to be like the thing, like I said, with Tim Powers, how he does his stories. He fills in the little gaps, where there's missing information. So we'll have information, but like in terms of like where they came from or when they start. You also have 2 past civilizations on Earth, so that opens up reopens up a whole new area there that could be discussed. I know that Jim Mars in some of his books got into that as well, going back to biblical times. What some of the different things that were written in the Bible actually signified in terms of aliens, but also then going before that, going back to, earlier on in early Egypt, what were the pyramids really, and where did those agencies come from? And even in the Mission Earth book, what Hubbard talks about there is, the aliens using pyramids to store small black holes to control the energy, used as a power source. So that could be a whole new line there that could be taken on as that becomes more and more developed in terms of knowledge. So it's just, there's always going to be something that somebody can speculate on, what about and what if, that you can get into that then when that gets proven out, opens up new areas of speculation. So it's not going to stop. So just because it's proven out that aliens exist, okay, so what degree are they made known? So we say the fact that they exist, but that doesn't mean that we've now actually had any concourse with them, or maybe it's just been the dastardly thing, like all we have is try to get, crash sites and be able to take anybody still alive and dissect them, which is a very negative thing, but that all that stuff opens up different lines of storytelling.
Very true in regards to that. But I mean, does it affect? And Emily, I'm going to bring up a point that you got here. Let me just rephrase here for a second. Emily, you brought up just a few minutes ago how all of a sudden there was panic in regards to the writers all of a sudden writing about pandemics during the pandemic. Yeah. Is that taking advantage of a situation with writers, or it's on their mind that they just feel creative and got to get the words out?
I think they're trying to, write what is trending kind of a thing. It's what's on people's minds. And, they're like I mentioned, it was like a lot, one of the judges had mentioned, there's a lot of pandemic stories coming in right now. And I think that it's because it's what's happening and what's on the mind. And you notice there was also a few movies that they were making about pandemics, and those were not well received. A few of them got put off. That they were planning on putting a film out, and that got postponed.
Actually, these are stories submitted, not necessarily stories that won.
Yeah, there's a lot were being written.
Okay, so why would an author all of a sudden, during a pandemic, when people are panicking all over the world, create more panic, so to speak, with that type of book? I mean, that just, in my opinion, it sounds a little ignorant on the writer's part to me.
Well, I think that's how some of the judges felt that we're seeing the stories come in as well. We didn't publish any of those this year. Maybe, I don't know. I'm not a judge for the contest itself, but it may have been the writing. But I think it has a lot to do with what's trending and what's on people's minds, and somebody taking advantage of that to get attention, because it's you type in a search on Google and things that come out high on a search, people are going to take advantage of writing about. So I think that's probably why they increased on the stories on the pandemic that were coming, mostly early to mid 2020. A lot of the pandemic stories, and then it kind of died down a bit I think the same thing would happen for aliens. I think it would just be a huge influx of alien stories after that.
Oh, come on. How many authors, Emily, did you give a good verbal shaking to for talking about writing a book on pandemics during the pandemic?
I think only one asked me about writing a story about pandemic, and I just said, I don't think that's a good idea. I think that was the long and the short of it.
John, how about you?
I think it's when I've talked to Dave Farland and some of the judges, people will send where we're going to send in. Like I said, we get a couple thousand entries every quarter, and it gets narrowed down, and we'll end up with maybe each quarter you have you have 3 winners each quarter, and then there's 12 winners throughout the year, and then you'll have maybe 150 different honorable mentions, several honorable mentions, finalists that get special certificates. These are stories that aren't like the run-of-the-mill, let's pump out a ready-made scenario that everybody's talking about right now. That's not what those stories are. So that people do it, it's the writers that will get the placing in Rise of the Future that don't fall into that. Let's do a Google search and find what's trending right now and write about that. They're going to have a story they're trying to develop. If somebody does something that's going to be based upon the pandemic, it's fine. People can submit whatever they want to submit. You just have to be speculative fiction. There's no other qualification on that saying, well, it can't be this kind of story, it can't be the kind of story, it can be, anything on that. It doesn't mean it's going to get anywhere, but people can submit, and we always encourage them to do that. If somebody's going to take the time to write a story, more power to them. That's great, because that's more than they're in the upper, 2%, 5% of the population, somebody's even able to sit down and write a story. So I will never naysay anybody who's written a story that I don't like. I'll just say, that's great, you wrote a story, congratulations. And I will definitely do that, and I do that all the time on my social media posts. And everybody that submits to the contest gets a letter thanking them for submitting and encouraging them to write another story. But when you get into the finals, you got to be really good. And it can't be just the run-of-the-mill type story or following a trend. There's no trendsetters. There's no trend followers that actually win in Writers of the Future. So it's just the very nature of it winnows them out. So what you got left then is just a real great, storytellers able to vie for those top positions. And some of these guys will enter many, many times before they finally win, but they keep on working for it because it's definitely an objective that's worth achieving. But for them, they're just getting better. They're better honing their craft. If they're really intent on becoming a writer and want to become a good writer, you got to write, and you got to work it. You got to keep on working it. So that's kind of if somebody's going to write a story, whatever it is, I'll say, excellent, you wrote a story. But now let's keep on working it, and get yourself to where you get into, the star class.
All right. So once again, if I'm a budding writer, how do I get into this? What makes me think that I should get into this?
Well, if anybody's just thinking about writing a story and you have ideas, you should go ahead and write them. And if you need help with writing it, we have a free workshop at writersofthefuture.com that will help anybody put a short story together. And, the thing is you should just go for it. If somebody wants to do it and they have a desire and they think that they have a good story to tell, they should just go for it. And there's lots of people that will help have a look at it, help edit it, and, but
critique it, not.
Yeah, and I think, we're always looking for good news stories, so, submitting those at writersofthefuture.com.
Yeah, and in addition to the online workshop, we have the Rise of the Future forum, which we just did a whole upgrade, which just came live a few hours ago. That's what we were working on when you called us this afternoon, Dave, getting the final steps of that up. So that's just now up right now. It's open to anybody to participate. We have very strict rules on how you have to behave in there. There's no nobody is allowed to stay in there if they're going to diss somebody else. That's not allowed. But totally helping each other, become a writer or an artist. We've got a podcast. I've got, I think, about 130 episodes now. I do one a week with major names and major authors, publishers. I got the publisher, the head of Tor, the head of several other companies dealing with publishing, with writing, with art. That we talked about the business and aspect of writing, and some of the famous writers that I've interviewed. We'll talk about their journey to becoming a writer, so you can find out, wow, I can do that. That's not too far for me. And I also interview some of the recent winners that on their journey to make it from how they started, heard about the contest, started entering, and what they had to go through to get it, and now what they've done to since becoming a winner. So we have that, and there's a blog where there's lots of posts from judges with their articles on tips on writing. So we have all these different things in place to be able to help the aspiring writer. And it was, again, it's per the, what Mr. Hubbard set up, what he wanted to be able to do. And we're just trying to facilitate as much as possible the aspiring writer or aspiring artist to get that break and to get their act together enough so that they can actually submit good art or a good story that will sell. And if they want to become a pro, they can actually do that. But that's the objective, and it's all there at writersofthefuture.com.
And anything goes, as long as it's interesting, correct?
Yeah, well, speculative fiction is what the contest is about. But we've had people taking this online course that we had one girl that Emily did an interview on who did the course. It was great, and she said, and so she sold her first mystery story. So the rules of writing they apply to whatever genre you're writing. So we've got several people that won Writers of the Future, over the years, who went on to other genres that were, very successful as writers. There's, anybody that enjoys romance. Joe Beverly won Rise of the Future. She became one of the top selling romance writers in the world. She passed away a few years ago, but she was amazing on that. Karen Joy Fowler, she wrote the Jane Austen book club. So that's not science fiction, but that's how she got her start. Nancy Farmer is a world famous young adult and children author, but she won the Rise of the Future. And it was with her money that she won that she was able to come up from South Africa to the United States and launched her career. So it doesn't matter even that you have to write science fiction or fantasy, to take the Rise of the Future course. It's just these are tips on how to write a story, how to start, how to change, how to complete it, how to do dialogue, all this stuff. Dialogue is dialogue whatever genre you write in. So for Rise of the Future, it's speculative fiction, which is science fiction, fantasy, alternate history, dark fantasy, and that's those categories there, which includes paranormal. And so that's what the contest is about for either art. So we have the Illustrators of the Future contest or the Rise of the Future contest. They're both are there on that riseofthefuture.com site.
As we have about just 6 minutes or just over that to go here, what do you want to see out of writers? I know there's the categories, but you two personally, you've been around enough writers over the years. What do you want to see? In your dream books, what are you writing that you want someone to come out and nail down?
Emily, girls first.
Well, I have to say, over the last few years, the stories that I've seen coming in seem to be getting a little darker and darker. So I'm kind of, a sucker for a good ending. I'm hoping to see some stories that are uplifting. I know Writers of the Future, they, the judges will lean towards and pick stories that have a, something positive about them, something. So I'm looking for a good story that shows advancement as opposed to destruction, more of not so much of the dystopian, but something that shows progress and advancement and creative ideas. That's what I'm looking for right now.
Oh, come on. Give me something non-politically correct here. What story do you want told?
What story? I don't know. That's the whole point of Writers of the Future. That's why I'm always looking for something I haven't heard of before.
Well, then tell me, what haven't you heard of? That's what I'm trying to get at.
I'm going to have to think about that.
Is it lizard people like in the television show V? You know?
It's been done.
Well, I realize they've been done. I'm just curious. I mean, how many more space amoebas do we have out there to wipe out the planet?
Yeah. War of the Worlds wasn't the end of it, that's for sure.
Yeah.
How about for you, John?
Well, I like a good some stories that I read recently with one is with Doug Beeson and Kevin Anderson. Another one was Doug Beeson and Ben Bova. Two different stories about you have these people that go into an area and you got your good guy and your bad guy, or a good team, bad team. And one took place on the space station on where some terrorists actually devised a way to get in there, and they were going to try to crash on New York City. And it was quite intense. And there it was the captain of the ISS was this real kick-ass, woman who she dealt with it, and that was really good. And it handled it, saved the day, and it didn't crash. And the other one was where there was a stockpile near New Mexico, Albuquerque, New Mexico, one of the mountains that was a secret encampment built during the World War II, where a lot of the atomic weapons were stored. And then because of the way the governments work by keeping everything separate, you can't tell other departments that two departments that were having things going in that same location was about to cause a huge disaster. And of course, it got handled in the end, but it was really pulse pounding. I like stories like that are very pulse pounding. They're just like I get so caught up in so much stuff I have to read. I like something that just really just takes me to a new level up in enthusiasm when I read it. So I like those types of stories like that. In terms of it hasn't been told, you can tell me that story over and over. I love that kind of story because I like it where it's just I have to turn the page to find out what's happening next. I just have to turn the page. I love those stories.
That's the kind that I'm looking for too. Ones that just grab you from the start to finish.
Yeah.
And too many times, somewhere in the middle, there's always that chapter that you're like, this is the chapter that will never end.
Yeah.
Usually around chapter 15 is where it comes in. You're like, my God, how could the last 14 be so exciting? And now I have to put myself through this.
Yeah, this is where he just found out he has to make another 50,000 words in this book, so here we go.
Oh, it's painful. Painful, I tell you. Well, we only have about just over 90 seconds left with you guys tonight. And John, Emily, it's been a pleasure to have you here because, we have a lot of fun with you guys here. And we'll do it again next year as well as we get closer to everything coming on up once again for Writers of the Future. Do us a favor again, John. Tell everybody the website where they can find the information and get a hold of you guys.
Sure. You go to writersofthefuture.com is the website, and there you can also, I really can't recommend enough to check out the books. We have it they're available on Kindle as well as on paperback, but to read the books to find out what we're talking about, why we're 38 years old. Nobody's even close to this length. And then we're also on social media. We got Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and YouTube, Writers of the Future, and it's short. It's at WOTF Contest. So WOOF Contest is the handle for all three of those social pages, and we're always uploading stuff with the latest from our various winners and judges, and more news about the contest and different things that people can actually do and learn.
For sure. I think that's going to be absolutely awesome. Absolutely awesome. And for you, Emily, I want to say, being the fellow Canadian, thank you for translating our English to John tonight so that way he could make it through the entire
It
interview.
helped me a lot.
You know, because we didn't want him getting into any trouble there and having to go to Google Translate during the show. It might have taken up some time.
It's been great chatting with you.
It really has, and it's been a pleasure chatting with you guys as well. And all the best to your 2021 contest. I hope you guys find just a wonderful writer and a wonderful winner of this year's conference. You guys hold on. We're going to go to break here at the bottom of the hour. John and Emily Goodwin from Writers of the Future. Coming up next, if you're in one of our chat rooms or you're on Twitter at #SpacedOutRadio, get your questions ready. I'm warming up the Magic 8 Ball. We got the News Wire and the Thought of the Dave coming up as well. Stay tuned. Good job, guys. Good job.
Thanks for having us.
Give you a few claps.
Thank you.
Well, that was a lot of fun once again. It really was. Thank you. And tell Carmen thank you as well.
I definitely will. I'm just curious on how many stations are you on, or how many? Because I never quite figured that out.
We're on 6 terrestrial radio stations, one in Canada, out just east of or just west of Toronto, and excuse me, we're on 5 in the U.S.
So one Canada, and 5 U.S.
Yeah. And then you know, you have all the digital formats that we're on as well, right?
Yeah. About 1,000 of those.
Yeah. No kidding. And more popping up all the time. It's hard to stay warmed up on them, but what do you do?
Yeah.
What do you do?
What do you do?
Mm-hmm.
Who are you going to call? I
have no idea. No idea. But we'll make it happen. All right, guys, I got to get ready for the news here. So we'll talk to you guys very, very soon. And good luck with your contest.
Thank you very much, Dave.
So much.
And hopefully we get a bunch of people from your from the show entering the contest, too. We're taking the course.
All right, perfect. Thanks, guys. Appreciate you.
Thank you.
Take care.
Okay, good night.
Bye. John and Emily Goodwin. Hey, Miller, what's going on? What's going on? I'm going to see if I can find a theme song for this. Let's go. And let's go here. Which one do we want? Something that brings us up here. Let's see if we can find it. Let's go to the channel here. How long do we have? We have a couple minutes here. Okay. No, I don't want that one. I'm going to have to edit one in. Because this is all of a sudden becoming something. I'll have to do that this weekend. Yo, Joshua, what's going on? Okay, I don't understand the whole hamsters thing. Someone explain the hamster thing to me. What did you do, Fricker? Hey, Joshua, thank you so much, man, for that awesome super chat. I appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you to Fabster as well. And I believe it was Andrew as well. Truck driver Andrew. Appreciate that. That means a lot, guys. Thank you. Thanks, D. Swiger. All right. Get your questions ready. Make sure you put them in capital letters. I'm going to start warming up the Magic 8 Ball right now. Om ba ba da dom ba da da dom ba da da dom da 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 do 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 da 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 do do do. We've rounded third. We're heading for home tonight on Spaced Out Radio. My name is Dave Scott. Thank you so much for choosing us. We really do appreciate you taking the time to join us. We really do. You know what? I want to remind you that if you missed portions of this show or others, you could check out our free archives by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Just do old Davey the favor. Hit that subscribe button. Our website, spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot and reading up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show. Speaking of the time of night, normally we go to the news right off the bat, but since it's that time of the week once again, we're going to warm up the Magic 8 Ball. Yes, let's warm up the 8 Ball. So if you're in one of our chat rooms or on Twitter at #SpacedOutRadio, make sure you put your questions in capital letters as we're warming things up here. We need some audience participation for this big game. And we're going to start off with Sandra. Sandra on Vancouver Island. She always likes her name said 3 times before she enters the chat room. We always have to say, hi, Sandra. Hi, Sandra. Hi, Sandra. Thanks, Fabster, for the super chat. I really do appreciate that. All right, let's go to her question. She wants to know, was I on a spaceship? Oh, Magic 8 Ball, has Sandra flown across the universe in a Tic Tac? Let's find out from the Magic 8 Ball. Shaking it up here for you, Sandra. And the answer is, you have my pity. Now, that could go either way, Sandra. That could go either way, where it's either you have my pity because the aliens weren't too nice to you, or you have my pity that this did not happen and it's your imagination. I'm going to allow you to decide that, so that way it is absolutely awesome. Which way do you want to go, Sandra? Which way do you want to go? I don't know. I have a question. I have a question for the Magic 8 Ball. Because we still have a lot of snow up here. And I want to get to my Sasquatch gifting site. Am I going to be able to get up to my Sasquatch gifting site within the next couple of weeks here? Will there be enough snow melt? Let's see. Oh, Magic 8 Ball will shake you on up. And the answer is, you may rely on it. Woohoo! Yes! Yes! I can't wait. Next week I'll ask if I'm actually going to see him this year. I hope so. Let's get to Kira's question. Will the UFOs land in Dave's yard this year? Oh my. This one's for me. I feel like it's Christmas time. Thank you, Kira. Shaking up the Magic 8 Ball. Will the UFOs land in Dave's yard this year? The answer is out of fuel. Try again later. So either they don't really want to answer, or the answer is no, we're going to be shut out this year from any aliens landing in Dave's backyard. All right, Cat the Kit. We love her around here. Will my summer be filled with aliens? Will her summer be filled with aliens? A few Greys, some Mantids, some Archons, some Arcturians, a few Pleiadians on the side, dabbled with a couple of reptilians, carrying her around like Cleopatra. Let's find out. And the answer is, don't count on it. Don't count on it, Cat the Kit. You don't have aliens this summer. You do not have aliens. Jenny wants to know, will I get to see Bigfoot again? Will I get to, if you hear that noise in the background, that's because what we're doing here is shaking up the Magic 8 Ball. Will Jenny get to see Bigfoot again? The answer for Jenny is, come on, reply hazy, try again. That means it's still thinking. Let's make that question a little bit more simple. Will Jenny get to see a UFO, or pardon me, Bigfoot, this year? Will it be this year that Jenny gets to see the big hairy Sasquatch? This year. Not again, this year. Come on, Magic 8 Ball. All clear. Good chance that it's going to happen, Jenny. Good chance that it's going to happen. And if it does happen, you can thank the Magic 8 Ball for it. Plain and simple. D. Swiger is asking, have I ever piloted a spacecraft? All right. Has D. Swiger ever piloted a spacecraft? Shake it on up. And the answer for you is, you may rely on it. Yes, you have. Yes, you have, D. Swiger. Kind of aliens you got? Let's find out. Type it in the chat room. Let's go over to the Philip Blair, everyone. The Philip Blair in our YouTube chat. Let's rock and roll. And his question is Dogman a vegetarian? Holy cow. Magic 8 Ball says, signs point to yes. Signs point to yes. I don't believe that one. I really don't. I think that, every now and again we get one wrong with the Magic 8 Ball. It is going to happen. But I really do believe that one is wrong. I really do. All right. Persevere is asking, otherwise known as Joseph Daniel Pena. Maybe it's Yosef. I wonder if he uses a soft J on that one. Joseph Daniel Pena. Do I have control of the vortex at my home? The answer is, signs point to yes. Signs point to yes. You've got a vortex. You might want to think of closing that up, because some bad stuff can come out of those vortexes. All right, let's move over to Cat the Kid again. Do I understand my true purpose? The answer is, sensors read no. You're still dazed and confused. Searching for that interesting thing we call life. Hold on. Let's go to the next question. Off-World Adam. Will my brother be successful in selling my house? Might have to fire him. I don't know. I'm just joking there, Adam. The Magic 8 Ball says, sensors read no. I don't believe that one. I think your brother's going to sell your house. Brett Lewis, is the SOR Vegas party happening this year? Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Magic 8 Ball, confirm that for us if you don't mind. Infinitely yes. Infinitely yes. We are going to party as a Spaced Out Radio clan in Vegas this year. Miller, how's this? The guy's name is Miller, and he drinks Coors Light. Talk about an oxymoron. But we like Miller around here. He wears a nice pair of sunglasses. Looks like the honky-tonk man from old WWE days, one of the greatest intercontinental champions ever in the history. Miller is asking, is Art Bell haunting me because he is mad at me or disappointed? Miller, signs point to yes. The Magic 8 Ball says signs point to yes. Art Bell is haunting you. Haunting you. And I know why, Miller. I know why. See, Miller on his YouTube channel will give his updates from his bathtub. You're not doing enough bathtub updates. That's the reason why. The ghost of Art Bell wants those bathtub updates. So you got to get back into that routine there. And I'm sure it'll lighten up. If not, light a candle. That always seems to work. That's what all the spooky people say. Jenny is asking, is there a giant red bird cryptid at the Cumberland Gap? Well, let's find out, Jenny. Let's find out. Intel looks good, is what the Magic 8 Ball says. Intel looks good. All right. Kira has a question. Are the Sasquatch in my yard? Does she have Bigfoots? Gosh, now we're going to have to get a t-shirt that says, you got Bigfoots. Answer? Batteries are low. Oh, you know what that means when the batteries start getting low on the 8 Ball. We're almost done. I'll try and get you another answer here, Kira. Come on. Let's have an answer here, Magic 8 Ball. Ask again later. 8 Ball's getting tired. We're going to have to shut this down real soon. I don't know. Kira, it's up in the air if you got Bigfoots or not. Philip wants to know, should I buy it? See, you're allowed to be that non-specific on this show for the Magic 8 Ball section. Batteries are low. Well, we're at that point, everyone. We're at that point. We'll try and get one more question in here, see if we can get some love for the Magic 8 Ball. If not, we're going to have to go over to the SOR Newswire because the Magic 8 Ball, it wears out. It wears out. You know, it takes a lot of energy to do what this does. All right? And the question from Persevere is my soul a reincarnate from thousands of years ago? Magic 8 Ball says, don't count on it. Oh my. That's the Magic 8 Ball for this week. We'll do it all again next week because we have fun with that. The news is always changing, which is why we bring you the SOR Newswire at the back end of every show where we get to the weird, the strange, the wacky, and sometimes the satanic. By the way, you notice the Magic 8 Ball, it'll start off a little slow, and then it gets into its real good peak, and then all of a sudden the batteries are low. And we always get a couple of batteries low. That's what I'm noticing about it. Last 3 times we've done this, 4 times, right near the end, when the Magic 8 Ball gets worn down, it starts saying that batteries are low. So we're going to have to keep an eye on that. That's pretty much a good time to shut it down. But let's talk about the news here. Nike is suing Mischief, a small Brooklyn-based company, over its sale of 666 pairs of altered Nike Air Max 97s as Satan shoes in collaboration with Little rapper Lil Nas X. Some workplaces encourage employees to donate blood as an act of charity, but 6 workers at Mischief, a quirky company based in Brooklyn that's known for products like toaster-shaped bath bombs and rubber chicken bongs, offered their blood for a new line of shoes. Sacrificed is just a cool word. It was just Mischief team that gave blood, one of Mischief's founders, Daniel Greenberg, said in an email. And why? A drop of blood is mixed in with the ink that fills in an air bubble in the sneaker, a Nike Air Max 97. Not much blood, actually, was collected, he said, but that's Mr. Greenberg. About 6 of us on the team gave. Mischief started selling 666 pairs of the shoes, each pair costing $1,018. As a follow-up to a line of Jesus shoes, which contained holy water, they sold out in less than a minute. Mr. Greenberg noted that Nike was not involved in the process in any capacity. In a statement, though, Nike is pretty upset. We do not have a relationship with Lil Nas X or Mischief. Nike did not design or release these shoes, and we do not endorse them. Nike has fired back, suing Mischief in U.S. District Court over the shoes, alleging that Mischief's unauthorized Satan shoes are likely to cause confusion and dilution and create an erroneous association between Mischief's products and Nike. Decisions about what products to put the swoosh on belong to Nike, not third parties like Mischief, Nike said in its lawsuit, referring to its swoosh logo. Nike requests that the court immediately and permanently stop Mischief from fulfilling all orders for its unauthorized Satan shoes. The Consumer Product Safety Commission did not immediately respond to requests from media about this and whether or not there were concerns or legal issues about the sale of the shoes because they have blood in them. If we can make people a fan of the brand and not the product, we can do whatever we want, Mr. Greenberg says. We build what we want. We don't care. The Satan shoes are a collaboration between Mischief and rapper Lil Nas X following the release of a devil-themed music video for his song Montero, Call Me By Your Name, in which he gyrates on Satan's lap. In the song, Lil Nas X, who is born Montero Lamar Hill, cheerfully rejoices in lust as a gay man, wrote Johnny Perales, the chief music critic for the New York Times. The Lil Nas X came out in 2019, and the song's title is an apparent reference to Call Me By Your Name, a novel about a clandestine summer romance between two men that was adapted into a film. Oh, getting juicy there. Getting juicy a little bit. Here's something funny. A young child inadvertently sparked confusion over the weekend by posting an unintelligible tweet to the official account of the U.S. Strategic Command. The agency is responsible for safeguarding America's nuclear weapons. Some social media users feared the account may have been hacked, but it has since been revealed that a young member of the account's social media manager's family was responsible for posting the tweet, which is a semicolon, the letter L, 2 semicolons, the letter G, M, L, X, Z, or Z, SSAW, which was then deleted within minutes. Yes. Now, apparently the accident got information after a website called The Daily Dot filed a Freedom of Information request to the agency. The command's Twitter manager momentarily left the command's Twitter account open and unattended, the response said, adding he had been working from home due to COVID. His very young child took advantage of the situation, started playing with the keys, and unfortunately and unknowingly posted the tweet. How cute is that? How cute. You know, the sad part about it is the guy probably got in trouble for that. You know what I'm saying? He probably got in trouble for that. And I don't really know if that's really, really something to get in trouble with, because today we just don't seem to have a sense of humor about very much anymore, do we? Thought of the Day happens every night at this time, where we ask a question on our Facebook and Twitter pages, then read your responses on the air because we love the audience participation around here. Today's Thought of the Day is as follows. If you could write a book, or your next book, what would it be about? Very interesting question here. Very interesting. We got a lot of response on this one. Graham, it's the 12th book. It's about Lions of Men. Uliak? I don't know. Dirty Filth. Probably a full-length comic of some sort, most likely involving aliens or something. AC. Collection of astral projected journeys. Peter, I would write a book about cryptocurrency and all the different ways it's changing the world, how it's giving people opportunities that never had opportunities before. I would help change people's lives and their financial situations. Allegal. My other life that's happening in a parallel timeline where the Allies didn't do so well in World War II. Dave. Crypto-terrestrials. Hoofprint. Gotta love some of these Twitter names. Hoofprint. Throwing this world away and starting a new one. Annie. I'm already on it. I want to discuss the connection between ETs, ghosts, cryptozoology, mythology. Lots of them exhibit characteristics of each other, and I wonder if we've drawn false boundaries around some really related subjects. Let's get weird. Oh yeah, that's worth the woo. Very much worth the woo. All right, moving on here. Let's go to Serena. I've written several. First two on psychic development. Next is about ghosts. I will release it May 3rd. Teresa has a story here. All of my UFO experiences since the early 1950s and paranormal activity. Oh, that sounds fun. June. I really want to write a book about all my travels, but make it funny. I have tried to start this many times, but I am lacking the confidence. Need to get better motivation. Let's go to Neil. It's all about my lifelong ET contact experiences. That sounds good, Neil. I think you should do it. Adriano. About my life and my experiences and the encounters I've had with people. That's very cool. William. Previous and past lifetimes. There is something there, I feel. I'm going to write about it. All right. Bruce just released a book called The Galactic Historian, The World According to Andrew Bartzis. Very cool. Philip Mantle just finished his. Philip's a good guy. Too bad he's in the UK. He doesn't like getting up at 5. That's why we can't get him on the show. Says, mine's already done. UFO Landings, UK. I like to read that. Sylvia, my life. Everyone that knows me has told me I should write a book. Kimberly, my OBE experience. My life being an empath and spiritual and the things I've done to become more into that essence rather than acting in fear or feeling less than valuable. Russell, I'm a lefty, and the title of my first book on UFOs attracted almost all the fear-mongering conspiracy theorists. My next book will have a title, that is more positive and hopeful. Working on it now. Science Bob, the energy possible FTL warp drive physics. Oh, that sounds like a movie. Nikki, my crazy paranormal life. Kira, the collective consciousness of all humans and our connections to the universe. We got Mr. Ron Bumblefoot Thal rocking in the background with Little Brother is Watching. Bumblefoot's now wearing our swag, by the way, and he is the official music of Spaced Out Radio, rocking us in and out of every single show. Get your horns up for the guitar god himself. Special thanks to everybody listening in at home, at work, in your cars, wherever you may be. Thank you to everyone in our chat rooms tonight on Spreaker, YouTube, LGAB, Revolution Radio, Facebook, the Space Travelers Club, and to everyone tuning on in, including the Tattoo Man, Anthony, in Connecticut, on hashtag Spaced Out Radio on Twitter. Remember, this show is copyright by Spaced Out Radio and SOR Media Ventures Limited. Thank you so much for choosing to share your evening with us, because together, my friends, say it with me, we own the night, Mr. Bumblefoot. We need a favor. We need you to take us home. Yes, the Woo Train has docked for the night. But soon, my friends, we shall ride again. Your seats are always available. Your tickets never expire. And if you want to bring a friend, we've got room for them too. Good night.